Chapter 81. The force of this world is boiling to an abnormal level. Chen Ong stood at the top of the Empire State Building and looked down at the bustling Vanity Fair. The bustling crowd played out wealth, prosperity, and evil throughout the night. A distorted world, Chen Ong concluded. It was hard to imagine that there was actually a world with such loose rules. In this world, the physical constants were so easy to pry open. The miracles of other worlds could probably be easily accomplished in this world. The science of martial arts was even more terrifying, although it was meaningless to other worlds. However, the observation of this movement also helped Chen Ong to understand the nature of the world more deeply. He gently waved in front of him, and the air distorted and reflected the light. The sky and the ground were filled with dense electromagnetic waves. In Chen Ang's eyes, it was like countless strange light rays. With a curl of his little finger, an electromagnetic wave was waved. In the distance, hundreds of millions of people put down the remote control in their hands in confusion and stared at the white snow on the TV. F***CK, what the hell is CBS doing? A black man cursed and changed the channel, but soon the snow spread like a virus. ABC, NBC, and even Fox were not spared. The black man angrily poked his head out of the window and was surprised to find that countless people were doing the same thing as him. At the same time, the snow spread like a virus throughout New York, the United States, America, and even the Earth. At first, it was the television network, then mobile phones, the internet, and radio stations. In the end, the whole world fell into a boiling panic. Hello everyone. I'm at the Empire State Building, greeting everyone. A strange voice, in multiple languages, said this sentence at the same time. No matter where they were, a tall and straight shadow appeared on their screens, following his gaze and looking down at the world. This is a world full of miracles. Mutants, abilities, radiation monsters, super technology, superheroes. They are constantly subverting all scientific common sense, Chen Ong said with a smile. To be honest, I'm surprised that you can maintain a healthy view of science. Phenomena that are constantly subverting common sense and the laws of science appear in front of you, but you still insist on science and did not go crazy. That's amazing. Although he said this, Chen Ong did not show any expression of surprise on his face. Countless people on Earth didn't seem to agree with him. Countless people cursed the guy on TV with the most furious language. They had never thought that a mutant could be so arrogant. This was something that had never happened in the entire world. All the superheroes, the X-Men, set off for the Empire State Building. This is a madman, countless people said. A valuable person. The politicians saw the power of Chen Ong. Genius, guys, that brother is a genius. The Mutants' Brotherhood cheered. Hey! Look here. Chen Ong heard the voice behind him. He turned around and saw the gray-haired Lady Stormsword unleashing an intense air current with an unstoppable force towards Chen Ang's abdomen. But at this moment, Chen Ong seemed to be weightless. He floated gently with the wind like a leaf. His toes touched the air current and floated tens of meters with this force. A high-energy laser suddenly shot towards Chen Ong and was reflected back as if it had met a mirror. The X-Men looked at Chen Ong in surprise. Suddenly, the professor's voice came to their ears. Be careful, his mind is very strong. I can't detect, sense, or affect him. This is a terrible opponent. Floating in the air, Chen Ong smiled slightly. Hello, Professor. The laser eyes lost control of his body, and a voice sounded in his heart. The professor's voice disappeared, and it only sounded again after a while. Since Jean, you are the most terrible mutant I have ever seen. Child, why did you choose chaos and darkness? I have never chosen darkness. It cares for me, but I am dismissive of it, Chen Ong said unhurriedly. Slaughter and chaos, power and wealth, they are not what I pursue. I have been moving forward. I feel your heart. It is pure and firm. I can even feel your kindness to all things. Why is all this? The professor was surprised. There are so many mutants in the world. They move the universe and have all kinds of magical abilities. Immortality, time stagnation, optical control, telepathy, but they are intoxicated with power and do not recognize and understand the world. Do you know what the nature of abilities is? I don't know what you think it is. I think abilities are the wealth given by God. He makes every child better. Abilities make the world a wonderful place, but human suspicion and doubt have changed everything. Child, you will aggravate this process. The professor sighed. Those who do evil will suffer the consequences of evil. Abilities are not power, and not a symbol of status. It is knowledge and discovery. When people with abilities use their abilities as power, they are destined to live in suspicion and fear. Because they are afraid, and even fanatically support this power. You think you are superior to others and have power, but you ignore evolution and accumulation. Human society is not nature. It is not a world of survival of the fittest. You think you are a new human being, but it is elimination. Your noble identity has been shattered as early as when you did not represent the progress of human productivity. Chen sighed. Humans are not animals. Power cannot eliminate everything. Our progress is the road of wisdom. Ability users have so many conveniences, but science, wisdom, economy, and contribution to society, you are far behind. You do not represent the forces of progress. The professor was silent. Yes, we are the lagging party. I regret the misinterpretation of the theory of evolution when I was young. Killing is not the path. Only progress represents everything. When the world's best doctors, scientists, workers, and farmers are all ability users, but when you use this power to contribute to humanity, the gap and killing will naturally be dissolved. I will be proud of this. The power of arcana may not lie in maintaining power, but in promoting progress. Child, you are the leader of the Arcanists. You are more suitable to lead the Arcanists than Magneto and I. Come with me. The professor sighed. You are the future. But I am not an ability user. Chen smiled. It doesn't matter. The professor sincerely said. What you seek is world peace, not progress, but I'm different. What I seek is progress. We are not on the same path. Chen sighed. I will let the world see the power of wisdom. I will let them see how ability pushes the world forward. I hope it will help you. You don't need to take such a path at all. Progress with humanity. The professor anxiously said. I am a traveler in time and space, a messenger of progress. I am just a passerby in every world. I appreciate the scenery of different worlds, I listen to the voice of fate, and I announce the direction of progress. Let me witness the wonders of this world. No matter where you are, whether you are a hero or a criminal, I will bear witness to all of it. Chen raised his hand, and a bolt of lightning came down from the sky, striking Stormsword's body and sending her flying. Chen stood at the top of the Empire State Building and announced to the world, I am the king of the world. No. The professor anxiously said. Wolverine's eyes suddenly lost focus, and he stopped behind Chen. You don't have to be like this. He can't hurt me. Chen smiled. Wolverine shook off the effects of his daze and said in shock, Professor, what are you doing? Chen eyes looked into the void, as if they were intertwined with each other. He smiled at the world's audience and said, Hello everyone, this is the time for a science lecture. A stone floated slightly, and Chen held it in his hand. He smiled and said, The ability to move objects with one's mind, you call it telekinesis. Obviously, this is a very wrong concept. You can't deduce conclusions based on the result. This is a serious mistake in science. Moving objects with one's mind, under the surface, is the intelligence of a behemoth. Everyone, take a look. This is how the average mutant fights. Chen smiled and swung the stone at the wall. The violent kinetic energy created a big hole in the wall. A direct method, but a pity it's too crude. Using telekinesis as an energy source is simply a joke. This world has never lacked energy sources. If it's used to control everyone, take a look. Chen Ong smiled and floated a puddle of gasoline. Suddenly, it burned violently, and under invisible control, a huge amount of kinetic energy and heat energy blasted at the Empire State Building. Visible to the naked eye, the top of the building was melting and breaking. The top of the Empire State Building suddenly collapsed, but under Chen Ang's control, it quietly turned into a pile of ruins. Unprecedented control appeared in front of the world. The calorific value of gasoline is about 1 liter of gasoline. If the density is 0, it can produce 212 by 10 carat 4 kilojoules of energy. What can this energy do? Forging metal, destroying boulders, these are all child's play. Only 1 liter of gasoline is needed to destroy the entire Hoover Dam. Lady Storm's word was almost trembling. She knew what kind of magic box Chen Ong had opened. Before humans could control such a powerful force, they might have to destroy themselves first. As for Chen Ong, he was still calmly narrating all of this. Controlling power is nothing. When you discover the wisdom behind the power, it will be very interesting. What is telekinesis? To me, it's a force field. To others, it might be a magnetic field, or maybe it's fluid control. Under one expression, there are countless possibilities. As for my telekinesis, it should be called gravity control. Chen Ong floated a piece of gravel and said, "The essence of gravity is that mass affects the folds of space. Therefore, my telekinesis has 3 points: mass, space, and energy. Unfortunately, we are on a huge mass, surrounded by countless folds of space. When wisdom and control reach a certain level, this is a nightmare. The folds of space drive the movement of objects, just like how denser objects will move to places with lower density. This is the essence of telekinesis. Energy is conserved. All telekinesis users rely on this huge mass under our feet. Then, what will happen when this kind of space control and influence reaches its peak?" Chen Ong said with a smile. Countless Americans suddenly exclaimed. They saw the Statue of Liberty being quickly destroyed into a pile of debris under the huge pressure. The Manhattan River soared into the sky, as if it had lost gravity. Hundreds of millions of tons of water rushed into the sea, showing a scene of destruction. To destroy the Statue of Liberty, I need a moment. To destroy Manhattan, I need 3 seconds. 3 minutes in New York, 3 hours in New York State, 3 days in America, and only 3 weeks in the whole world. Congratulations, in 3 days, an asteroid with a diameter of 800 meters will hit the Earth. In 3 weeks, it will be an asteroid with a diameter of 30 kilometers. In 3 months, you will be lucky enough to enjoy the scene of the Moon and Earth colliding. Humanity will be destroyed in 1 day. Now, whether you are a hero or a sinner, whether you are a mutant or an ordinary person, find me and stop me." The whole world suddenly fell silent. Chapter 82. Where is he now? Where is our army? General Vic angrily hammered the table. He pulled up the staff officer next to him and roared at him. "Tell me, a mutant destroyed our Statue of Liberty and the Empire State Building in front of the world, and now you actually let him stay in Manhattan. Am I crazy? Tell me, am I crazy, or are you a bunch of trash?" He slammed the poor staff officer to the ground. "Now, tell me, where is the army and where is the enemy?" "General, the New York garrison has fallen." "What are you trying to tell me? You used fallen? Are you trying to tell me that they were all killed by a mutated bastard?" The furious Vic lifted the staff officer high into the air and stared at him with his bloodshot eyes. The staff officer's teeth were chattering, and his legs were shaking like sieves. He looked to the left with trepidation. Vic put down the staff officer and walked in the direction the staff officer was looking at. A gentleman with meticulously combed hair was quietly watching the screen, as if he did not hear Vic's stormy roar. Vic threw a right hook, wanting to punch this damn woman into the screen. However, a big hand like an iron hoop grabbed his right fist. It was a big guy with a deadpan face, firmly holding his hand. Only then did the guy slowly turn around. I admire you very much. In a word, those bastards. They are bastards, monsters, deformed. They are the sins of the world. The gentleman raised his right hand, motioning the big man to let go of the general, and slowly said, "But they are also a group of powerful monsters. General, take your little babies home. This is a battlefield, please leave it to the professionals. We are professionals. Stryker." Vic's face turned red, and he gritted his teeth to retract his right hand that was squeezed into a ball. "Really?" Stryker tapped lightly on the screen, and a shaky picture flashed out. On the picture, an armored vehicle and a tank collided into a ball. The truck was torn into pieces in the galloping, and it fell on the road together with the soldiers on it. Countless heavily armed soldiers wailed as they were pressed to the ground by a huge gravity. The fighter disintegrated automatically in the air. The machinery destroyed itself into a pile of waste. The burning steel and gasoline converged into a huge fire tornado in the air, destroying all the nearby fortifications. The F-16 was like a fragile piece of paper, controlled by an invisible force and slammed into the ground. Vic did not even see a single enemy. Soldiers were injured by the automatic bullets in the magazine, machines and vehicles were destroyed by their own power, and the weapons that the United States was proud of were self-destructing under the control of the enemy. Not a single one of them, not even a lone enemy. The soldiers panicked as they faced the sky, but their limbs were pierced by the falling bullets. Blood, fire, and iron twisted in the burning air. This is your performance. Facing them, you are as helpless as a child. Stryker sneered. You didn't even see him. In the process of looking for him, you destroyed yourself. Vic's face was livid. He held the table tightly, and his nails pierced into the solid wood table, staining his hands with blood, but he didn't seem to notice it and still stared at the screen. What's going on? Where is the battlefield assessment expert? Where is the intelligence team? I want all his information, everything. The staff officer stood up tremblingly and said in a nervous, trembling voice, "Code X, nationality unknown, age unknown, identity unknown." According to his behavior habits, the possibility of him being Chinese is 80%. There is no information about his behavior. When he appeared for the first time, he made a live broadcast that shocked the Earth in front of the world. His ability is psychokinesis. According to the classification, it should be the gravitational control in psychokinesis. Omega-level mutant. According to the data, his ability operation accuracy is nanometer level. According to him, he has the power to pull down asteroids and destroy the Earth. With a bang, the staff officer covered his face and squatted down. Vic put down the teacup in his hand and said angrily, "What else did you find out besides the unknown? Who the hell knows about these things? How did he destroy our army? What is the weakness of his ability? How do we kill him? His family, friends, country, is he a ghost that appeared out of thin air? Asteroids are not enough to destroy the Earth, at most, they can destroy human beings." Stryker said leisurely, "Your information is already most of it, Vic. We know nothing about him. He has no trace of his existence in this world. But we know that he is a weapons expert, proficient in most of our standard weapons, understanding every parameter of mechanical structure. He is a physics expert. He can exert a very small force to destroy a behemoth in operation. He is an energy expert, a chemistry expert, a high-energy physics expert, and more importantly, he is also a nuclear expert. Don't tell me he can synthesize nuclear bombs. It's not that amazing. But if he has nuclear materials, it is enough to have a violent fission reaction on its own, and our technology can't stop it." Stryker sighed. The power of wisdom and science, the great power of mankind. Although he is a mutant, he is more like a human than any other mutant. Other mutants are just beasts, only he is a hunter. You mean, any nuclear power plant on our land can become a nuclear bomb at any time. Big beads of sweat dripped from Vic's forehead. What are we waiting for? This is a thug, an unprecedentedly dangerous lunatic. Wait, are you sure about all this? How do you think the Washington Aircraft Carrier Group, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, was destroyed? Stryker laughed. I saw the Washington Aircraft Carrier Group in the dock the day before yesterday. Stryker, don't try to lie to me. Vic stared at Stryker and said fiercely, "Take a look." Stryker handed him a document with the double-headed eagle top secret mark and said while facing the screen with his hands behind his back, "The huge heat of the nuclear reaction destroyed the core of the aircraft carrier, and what is lying in the dock now is a pile of scrap iron. Our pride, in the hands of X, is a nuclear bomb that can be detonated at any time. He can easily destroy all aircraft carrier groups, and the Department of Defense has issued strict requirements that all nuclear weapons are not allowed to face X. If this is the case, why didn't he destroy the Washington Aircraft Carrier Group?" Vic couldn't believe it and he questioned. Stryker was silent and said after a while, "Professor X, that mutant bastard, proposed a possibility. He thinks that X is promoting peace between mutants and humans. He is urging the world to face the power and value of mutants and to reintegrate mutants into human society." Promote by destroying the Earth? Do you want to promote it by killing? Vic laughed wildly. Isn't war the biggest impetus for ethnic integration? In the face of such a crisis, mutants and humans can only unite and communicate with each other. The power of mutants makes the opposition tremble, and those who support them cheer as heroes. There is a great possibility of his behavior. Stryker said indifferently, "You mean we are facing a saint in human history? Jesus?" Vic laughed. He felt that there was nothing more ridiculous than this. He pointed to the battlefield on the screen, pointed to the flying bullets and said, "Are you sure Jesus did this? He is Satan. Without him, why do people look forward to heaven?" Stryker smiled and said, "Most of the soldiers are just injured. The soldiers you see who are really dead have a low mortality rate. To the mutated humans, he is Satan. However, I am not a lamb waiting for the arrival of the gospel. Those bastards, their only value is to lie on the experiment table. Those monsters, their only fate will be destruction. So, find him and kill him, no matter what he wants to do." "So?" General Vic narrowed his eyes. "So, let the professionals come and let the hounds behind me show some color." Stryker looked at the men in black behind him and sneered. "Go! My weapons!" In Manhattan, there were beacons everywhere, and the unburned fireworks were filled with black smoke. The once most prosperous center of New York was ruined like a huge ruin. The once bustling crowd and elites are now only a few wild dogs and carnival gangsters playing in this city. A huge steel structure hovered in the center of Manhattan. These TV towers and steel frames gathered from all directions, twisting into a huge steel throne on the original site of the Empire State Building. Chen Ong stood at the peak and looked into the endless distance. "It's finally here." Chen Ong sighed. The invisible gravity, like a giant spider web, stretched across the entire territory of the United States and continued to spread to other areas. All the mass that could affect gravity was reflected by this giant web. Through Chen Ong, it was connected to the Internet of electromagnetic waves that stretched across the sky. Now, Chen Ong uses himself as the hub of the global network. Through the wireless network, he borrows the infinite computing capacity of the global computer to monitor every trace of the world. Chen Ong is quickly simulating Professor X's telepathic ability. He is learning and observing the world. In the distance, Chen Ong clearly sensed that several human bodies with strange magnetic fields were approaching here quickly. Stryker, don't let me down. Chapter 83. This is a war. Even if the other party is only one person, it is still a war between him and the United States. Stryker sneered and slapped the button in his hand. He will soon know how terrifying the war potential of a country is. This is not the kind of small action before. Now, let's abolish his intelligence ability. The alloy door behind him slowly opened, revealing a bustling and noisy crowd. Hundreds of men and women in military uniforms screamed and ran in front of the computer. Countless people flowed in an orderly and organized manner, acting for a war goal. X's physical analysis report is in file number 1, and the psychological analysis report is in file number 2. The behavioral expert group, please go to analysis room number 1, and the psychology group, please go to intelligence center number 2. Manhattan Terrain Structure Mission, transfer data to support 3D modeling, and request the meteorological data of the last month from the Weather Bureau. Stryker smiled and took Vic into the command room. In front of the huge central supercomputer, a black old man bent over and curled up on the medical bed. Electronic Will, the best hacker in the world. Before that person appeared, he was the king of the global network. His mutated ability is electronic command, which can give computers artificial intelligence. Now he maintains the union of 23 supercomputers in the United States. We have been resisting that bastard's attacks on the network. Now is the time to fight back. In the 23 underground bases in North America, all operations are manually completed, and the huge central computer flashed with countless faint blue lights. Under the command of Electronic Will, countless data swarmed up from the world's network, impacting Ch'en-Ang's Skynet architecture. In the sky, a Hercules formation flew toward Manhattan. When they were 5 kilometers away from the Iron Throne, they slowly opened their trunks, and the containers weighing hundreds of tons fell out with a loud bang, turning into piles of waste on the ground. Crimson molten iron gushed out of the sealed boxes, flowing on the streets, and wherever it passed, everything melted away. A black-clothed man stood in front of the molten iron, allowing the scarlet-hot liquid to flow over his head. He was like snow under the scorching sun, disappearing without a trace. Everything had melted cleanly, but the scarlet iron seemed to have its own will. The dark red molten iron became scarlet red again, surging towards the steel throne. Liquid Body, Earth King, Deadpool, Phantom Master, Steel Man. Ch'en-Ong smiled faintly, revealing his white teeth. Countless distorted gravitational forces surged all over his body like the ocean before a storm. They were slowly brewing and waiting to be unleashed. His feet hovered slightly above the ground, his eyes filled with joy and anticipation. The fluid was the man in black who had just disappeared. He could merge with any fluid and turn any substance he came into contact with into a fluid. The surging molten iron melted the concrete, melted Manhattan, and flowed toward the Iron Throne. Earth King and Steel Man rushed out from a building on the side. The Earth King stepped on the flowing concrete, the surging soil, stones, and cement wrapped him up. He stood on the ground and became one with the earth. Even gravity could not destroy this whole body. The Steel Man stood on his shoulder, the alloy gradually covering the surface of his body. The King of the Earth raised his hands and held the Illusion Master in his hands. An integrated energy field immediately covered the fragile Illusion Master. The King of the Earth's ability was to assimilate energy fields. He stood on the ground and had endless power, just like Achilles. The torrent of steel and concrete passed through the streets and overflowed the tall buildings. Under the gaze of Ch'en-Ong, it slowly flowed toward him. But at this moment, a strange distortion suddenly appeared behind Ch'en-Ong. A katana, at a speed that was truly beyond the visual, stabbed at Ch'en-Ang's back. Deadpool's red shadow rushed out of the void, and the flowing sword light gently wiped Ch'en-Ang's shadow. The sharp and invincible sword light, made of adamantium, was enough to cut through flying bullets, but it flowed through Ch'en-Ang's shadow as if it was nothing. A voice sounded behind him. "Are you a warrior?" Ch'en-Ong stood behind Deadpool, holding an egg-thick steel bar in his right hand and gently pointing it on Deadpool's spine. An invisible tremor force penetrated into Deadpool's spine, destroying his ability to move. "Sorry, I forgot, you can't speak now." Although Chen-Ong said this, there was no apology in his hand. The steel bar lifted Deadpool high, and Chen-Ong turned his right hand and gently removed another alloy sword from Deadpool's back. His thumb wiped the edge of the blade, and the bright cold light illuminated his eyes. Deadpool tilted his head and made an innocent expression. On the steel bar, his body disappeared without a trace. Chen-Ong faced the sun, stretched out his left hand, and made a strangling gesture. "You should learn physics. If your physics teacher was still alive, he would definitely be willing to talk to you about the close relationship between space and gravity, so that you wouldn't do something stupid like space jump in front of a gravity master." Countless tiny gravitational threads wrapped around his left hand and spread into the void. This was the fold of space, and a huge funnel seemed to appear in the void. The mouth of the funnel was on Chen-Ang's left hand. Chen-Ong grabbed Deadpool's neck, pinched the back of his head, and slammed him straight into the steel wall. The protruding steel thorns pierced Deadpool's limbs, and a steel all entwined with electric current pierced his spine. The jumping electric light destroyed Deadpool's nerves, causing him to convulse violently. "Space jump? Now I can do it too." Chen-Ong took a step forward, and the dense gravitational threads twisted the space into a huge fold. Chen-Ong imitated Deadpool's actions, passing through the warp of space step by step. With a flash, he stepped on the top of the steel throne, and the next moment, he appeared on the sea dozens of miles away. One step at a time, Chen-Ong gently waved the long blade in his hand. The blade light flashed in the void, and the steel man staggered. In front of the Earth King and the Phantom Master, his head fell down. In the huge steel torrent, at the red-hot core, a molten iron with human facial features controlled the direction of the torrent. In midair, a blade light suddenly divided him into two, then a second, a third, and countless dense samurai sword shadows cut the molten iron into tens of thousands of pieces. The molten iron stagnated for a moment, then gathered together, wrapped in a fluid and rushed out of the torrent, taking over the steel man's head. A layer of thick liquid suddenly appeared on the wound of the alloy head, and the fluid connected the head to the steel man's body. Hearing the steel man's creaking sound, he twisted his neck and said stiffly, "Thanks to you, fluid." "Deadpool, you idiot!" The fluid sneered, and he shouted into the void, "Even if it is adamantium, physical force can't hurt me. You may have some ability, but you should never have provoked me." "Really?" Chen-Ong appeared behind him. "Are you going to cut me? Come on. Come on." The fluid bared his chest and said conceitedly, "Insert your alloy blade into me. Hit me with your fists. Or raise your big head and hit me." The fluid pointed to the huge steel throne and said sarcastically, "What's the use of this thing, to hit people?" Chen-Ong looked curious, and he asked, "In your impression, is physics force?" The huge steel throne slowly rotated, and the three huge steel frames flashing with blue lightning were densely covered with electric currents. Chen-Ong stood in front of the fluid body and said to the huge steel monster, "Do you think this thing is used to hit people? I'm not Magneto. I don't like to use a pile of scrap iron to do work." Chen-Ong had already stepped on the throne in the next moment. A huge electric current passed through the center of the throne, and the mysterious blue lightning wrapped around the entire throne. The ground began to tremble slightly, and immediately the fluid found that he seemed to be unable to control his body, and the molten iron solution floated up irresistibly. "It seems that not many of the mutants have gone to school," Chen-Ong said to the professor in his heart. "They are so superstitious about their own power that they have long forgotten to use their own brains. It seems that they can only smash things around, just like fighting with their muscles, crudely using their abilities. They have long forgotten that humans have not only relied on muscles to fight hundreds of years ago. Call the X-Men." The professor sighed. "War is not the solution to the problem, and killing is the same. Maybe you are right, but no matter what, I will stop you. X-Men, let's go. Above the steel throne, the violent magnetic field made all the metal objects in the Manhattan area levitate. Chenong watched all this. He looked back at Deadpool, who was trembling on the steel cone, and smiled slightly. General, the analysis report is out. That's not a simple building. The staff officer staggered to Stryker and Vic, and the hot-tempered Vic grabbed him and shook him like a chicken. Look at those electric currents. Everyone knows that it's not a simple building. Get to the point. That's an electromagnetic generator. The powerful kinetic energy of the water flow in the Manhattan River is converted into a magnetic field and electric current through the generator. Now, tens of millions of kilowatt-hour of electric current are generated there every moment, and this building appeared 2 days ago. Stryker grabbed the report from the staff officer's hand and calmly analyzed. Now, we are facing a master of gravity with a powerful energy backing. In the powerful electromagnetic field, the body composed of iron flow was subjected to tremendous pressure from all directions. He did not even dare to transform into other forms. As long as he left the iron flow state, the huge dynamic potential energy of the remaining iron blocks would crush him into pieces. Under the gaze of Chenong, the fluid was crushed into an iron ball by the huge magnetic field, suspended over the throne. The remaining molten iron lost the control of the fluid and gradually solidified. Under the control of the electromagnetic field, it accelerated and rotated. Huge kinetic energy was accumulated in the iron bomb. The hundreds of tons of iron blocks exuded crimson heat in the magnetic field. This huge cannonball, under the control of Chenong, was aimed at the Earth King. The largest electromagnetic cannon in human history had exploded in Manhattan. Stryker felt a violent vibration coming from under his feet. In front of everyone's incredulous eyes, Manhattan set off a torrent of millions of tons of earth and rock. The powerful shock wave shook half of New York. The huge wave of soil was even thrown thousands of meters into the air, and the entire Americas could feel the tremor under their feet. Half of Manhattan Island disappeared in front of everyone's eyes, leaving the world with a brand new bay and a rain of mud and rocks in the sky. Chenong stood on the steel throne and looked in front of him. There, the Earth King stood there intact. Chenong smiled slightly and greeted him. Chapter 84. The world unfolded in front of Chenong's eyes. The breeze caressed his face, the slightest reaction of his skin, the cold steel under his feet, and the sound of electric currents jumping in his ears. Everything was real. Standing opposite Chenong, in front of Earth King, there was another Chenong. Like a mirror, that Chenong took a step forward with a smile. Suddenly, his body rippled like water. His face twisted, and when it reappeared, it was the appearance of Professor X. Surprised. The voice that came out of Professor X's mouth was Magneto's. Professor X got up from the wheelchair again and said with a maniacal smile, "Do you believe that humans are such fragile things? They rely on their own senses to understand and observe the world. This kind of true cognition is so fragile. Their thoughts, character, cognition, and everything in their personality depend on this fragile, ridiculous, and false sense of perception. And the information that shapes a person's inner being is the information they receive. The source of this information is limited to the human senses. Our understanding of the world and our personality are gradually completed from the information we see and hear. Conversely, information can shape a person, and naturally, it can also destroy a person, as long as they are smart enough." Chenong laughed. "You are a smart person, so you are a master of illusion, not a manipulator of the five senses." "You are absolutely right," Jason said crazily. "I am a master of illusion manipulation. I am a master of psychological manipulation. I shape those people into what I want to see. I am their master." He retracted his trembling hand and looked at Chenong. "You are a different person. Among all the people I have met, you are the only one who uses these strange things to perceive the world. Jason, who was disguised as a professor, sighed with emotion. I think since you know me, you should understand me. My father, he is also a fool. He tried to shape me into a weapon to control me. But there is a problem. Who created his extremes, his madness, and his ridiculous thoughts? It's you. Chen Ong said indifferently, of course it's you. His madness and anxiety, his hatred and extremity, he's your most successful work. You must be very satisfied, because you didn't manipulate a person, but created a personality, molded a person, his hatred and love, his persistence and dreams. This feeling must be very good. It's wonderful. His madness, his incompatibility with this world, his complicated feelings towards me, what a great and contradictory existence he is. Talent is the most beautiful work of art. The great, the despicable, the infatuated, the unforgettable, these were originally the work of God. Now another great artist has participated in this process. Jason's voice suddenly became low. He is my father, he gave me life, he created me. I am his father, and I have recreated him. What a wonderful cycle. Jason looked at his hands in a daze. He waved his hand to grab the sun and shouted, I am the sun. Chen Ong saw the sun in the sky melt and fall, merging with Jason, who was disguised as Professor X, turning into a man of light without a face and silhouette. Reality and illusion, fake and real, the brain in a vat, the master of illusion. Chen Ong sighed, I thought you were a scientist, I didn't expect you to be an artist. Chen Ong was a little disappointed. Although Jason had truly deeply developed his ability, it seemed to be completely different from what he expected. Chen Ong hoped that Jason would be a calm, objective psychologist, and a master of crime who manipulated human nature. Through the study of the human heart and human nature, he destroyed people with his senses and reshaped them. Unfortunately, he only saw a lunatic who used his ability as a drug. He regarded madness as a matter of course, just like psychotropic drugs. He used his ability crudely. He did not explore the mysteries of the human brain, nor did he delve into the human heart that even Chen Ong was obsessed with. Instead, he used madness and chaos to infect others. That's why people shouldn't dabble in art. Once they dabbled in art, they would become useless. At least half of them would go crazy. Once it was traced back to philosophy, the whole person would go crazy. Jason, your view is very interesting, but unfortunately, Chen Ong said lightly, if it's just like this, you can be called an illusion clown, but you don't deserve the title of Master of Illusion. Jason's voice became silent. The sunlight in the air suddenly became gloomy. A hoarse voice, Jason's real voice, echoed in the air. I thought you could appreciate my art. Now it seems that you only deserve to be my work of art. The light gradually disappeared from the world. Sulfur and flames began to roast this space. Chen Ong raised his head. His eyes were as calm as a deep blue ocean. Around him, countless madness, bloodthirst, cruelty, darkness and terror that struck the depths of people's hearts were ignored by him. The scorching lava, the endless abyss, the pain, the screams, everything seemed to be real, but it didn't arouse the slightest reaction from Chen Ong. He could still control his body and actions. It was as if everything didn't exist in his eyes. He resolutely walked in one direction. Jason's voice suddenly came with a trace of madness and surprise. How did you overcome your subconscious? A human's consciousness wasn't enough to control the body. Most of the activities were done by the subconscious. Even if you knew that it was an illusion, your subconscious could still be deceived. When you felt pain, you would withdraw your hand. When you felt stimulation, you would react. This wasn't even controlled by your consciousness. When you felt the burning heat and pain, your subconscious would feel that your body was injured and have difficulty breathing. This was an instinctive reaction of the human body. It wasn't something that couldn't be controlled by your consciousness. Now that Chen Ong had walked through the lava, stepped into the sky, and allowed the world to change, his body didn't react at all. This wasn't normal at all. I don't have a subconscious. Chen Ong laughed. Impossible? It's impossible for humans to not have a subconscious. Jason's voice had a rare trace of anxiety. He could accept death, but he couldn't accept his own failure. Once he immersed himself in the feeling of omnipotence, he couldn't accept the feeling of helplessness in the past. Nothing is impossible. Once your consciousness can control your body, your breathing, reactions, processing those complicated information, and even control those complicated biological instincts, is there still a need for the subconscious to exist? Chen Ong laughed. The human mind is very interesting. Some things in the mind, the information in the subconscious, are very interesting. Chen Ong gently waved his hand, and the world fell into darkness again. How is this possible? How did you control this world? Jason was completely shocked. He was like a child who had been barged into his forbidden zone. Seeing his secret base being barged in by an adult, he realized that his territory had been invaded, and his fantasies had been trampled. The helplessness and fear he felt. Chen Ong wasn't in the mood to take care of Jason's fragile mind. He let the world fall into darkness, and when it lit up again, he was already standing on the steel throne in front of Jason. In reality, Jason was just a pale, skinny young man. His face was pale, and he trembled as he looked at Chen Ong. Chen Ong took a step forward and came before him. Jason lost his balance and fell to the ground. In the human subconscious, there is a collection of information like concept. What is a concept made up of? Chen Ong looked at Jason and smiled. It's some attributes that humans can feel, such as weight, color, shape, smell, touch, and texture. These things form a concept. As for the truth that the concept represents, it's even greater. In the places that we can't see, in the real world, there will always be a great truth. After saying so much, there's only one meaning. That is, our concept and understanding of things is only one side of the truth. Obviously, Jason, you can see and control my brain, but in the field of the brain, you're still far from it. You can only use your concept to describe my world. Chen Ong gently tapped Jason's head and smiled. Now, take a look at the world in my eyes, my understanding and concept of the world. Ah! Jason felt a sharp pain in his head, and countless complex information poured into his mind. He saw the world unfolding infinitely, one by one, warped gravitational folds, and space distortion all over the world. He saw the Earth condensed in a small point and expanded infinitely. Every inch of space was in that point and everywhere. Chen Ong took him and stepped into that point. They appeared in front of Stryker and took off his hat. They appeared in front of Magneto and left a piece of iron particle on the plastic. They appeared in front of the professor. The professor nodded gently to Chen Ong. They were in the White House, at the Pyramid, at the Great Wall, at the Red Square, at the Eiffel Tower, and at the Colosseum. At the same time, in countless locations, Chen Ong unfolded the entire space dimension and appeared in countless places with Jason at the same time, and at the same time, these places collapsed into a small point. The next moment, they had returned to the steel throne. This place has already changed. Countless magical and unspeakable existences are spread throughout every inch of space. Jason can see waves of fluctuations filling the space around him. A special will is fighting with Chen Ang's will in these ubiquitous fluctuations. He saw countless information carried in the fluctuations. Chapter 85. Honey, we're working overtime today. X is on target. Illusion Master has failed. The military has sealed off Manhattan and refused to divulge any information about the mutant. According to sources, the military's operation in Manhattan has failed miserably. We don't know what's inside. Electromagnetic waves drifted in the sky. Jason could see the information they carried. Countless strange waves reflected the countless things in the world that couldn't be seen or felt. Jason could even see strange life forms living in the same space, but they couldn't touch the human world on Earth. The two worlds were once so close, but they couldn't feel each other. A creature with an uncertain shape passed through the body of a human on Earth. The two didn't notice each other at all. Countless worlds overlapped in space. It's amazing, isn't it? Chen-Ong stood beside him and looked at this strange world. He smiled and said, "Visible light waves are electromagnetic waves of 0.33 micrometers. Infrared and ultraviolet are worlds that humans can't see with their eyes, but they can still be observed with instruments. But how many worlds do humans know? Less than 3 in 10,000. The world I see is already 100 times bigger than the world that humans can perceive. Electromagnetic waves can be seen, radiation can be seen, space can be seen, gravity can be seen, and there are countless worlds that can't be detected at all. These worlds that can't be discovered have another name, dark matter. This is the world in my eyes, this is the concept in my eyes. If you want to deceive me, please don't use those low-end attributes, like a pixel game to deceive my senses." Chen-Ong looked at Jason and sighed. He raised his right palm and smiled indifferently. Suddenly, a distorted air appeared in his palm, and a dot of blue gradually expanded. Color. It was either strong or light blue, twisting in Chen-Ang's hand. Shape. The outline of a flower appeared in the blue. It was so real that no clues could be seen. Quality. The blue flower fell into Chen-Ang's palm. Texture. Chen-Ong handed the flower to Jason. Jason felt that it was almost real to the touch. Temperature. Jason felt that the flower in his hand had a real breath of life. Sound. The wind blew through the flower and the sound of petals dancing. Smell. The smell of sunshine and the fragrance of flower petals. Taste. Jason plucked the petal and chewed it carefully. A bitter taste filled the tip of his tongue. There are also things that you can't see, hear, or touch. Jason did not notice any change in the petals. Is what you see the truth? Humans live in a world of senses. They are easily deceived, changed, and controlled. On the other side of the earth, countless people cried out in alarm. They pointed at the rising sun and looked at everything that had appeared under the sunlight again. The moon and the sun appeared in the same sky. Impossible, impossible! Jason picked up the flower uncontrollably and looked around crazily. He grabbed his hair and knelt on the ground in despair, screaming miserably. Chen-Ong blended into the wind, but his voice resounded throughout the world. "I deceived your eyes, I deceived your ears, I deceived all your senses, I deceived your understanding of the world, and even your ability was deceived. I created your world, I changed your personality." Jason felt a deep darkness surrounding him. He passed through the darkness and came to the outside world. It was an ordinary world. In the distance, the crater of the electromagnetic gun was still emitting green smoke. The Earth King struggled with difficulty. Below him was the Steel Man with a metallic luster. When they saw Chen-Ong, the Earth King roared and raised his hand to grab the Steel Man beside him. He threw it out with all his might. Sharp blades appeared on the Steel Man's hands and feet, and it shot towards Chen-Ang's head. But everything froze in an instant. Jason saw himself raising his hand, and his ability was silently released towards the Steel Man and the Earth King, changing his 5 senses, deceiving his subconscious, and even his ability. The Steel Man turned into a steel statue, and the Earth King turned into a stone man. They froze at that moment, and their abilities became their ubiquitous restraints from their arms and weapons. They soberly felt their bodies stiffen little by little, felt their abilities lose control, and roared and solidified into statues. Chen-Ang's voice clearly came from his ear. "I am the Illusion Master. Weapon X, Total Destruction." Stryker's face was pale, and the hat on his head disappeared without a trace. Together with General Vic, he trembled as he looked at the picture on the screen, watching Deadpool twitching in the electric current, the struggling fluid in the steel ball, the Earth King solidified into a stone statue, the Steel Man turned into a large iron block, and finally, the Illusion Master crawling in front of Chen-Ong. The throne was slowly lifted, and Chen-Ong stood at the peak. His eyes crossed the endless sky and ocean, and looked at Magneto hundreds of miles away. Magneto looked at the metal suspended in front of him, and nodded with a smile. He took a little body tissue from the Steel Man and also collected a little blood from the Earth King, as well as fluid. Deadpool, the throne behind him, suddenly opened a door, which was neatly placed inside. The Manhattan Scientific Research Agency's precision instruments were neatly placed inside. The invisible force field hand grabbed the 5 weapon X's and entered, and the door closed with a bang. The most cutting-edge scientific instruments, and the advanced science and technology of the Star Wars world, plus the magical abilities and laws of this world, Chen-Ong shuttled through various instruments, trying to replicate the black technology of the Star Wars world, the activated metal cells of the Steel Man, the cellular magnetic field of the Earth King, the brain secretions of the Illusion Master, the amazing vitality of Deadpool's cancer cells, and the fluid anthropomorphic cells. Of course, there is also the anti-gravity engine. Even without developed material processing technology, under the observation of Chen-Ang's gravity control ability, he still replicated a shrunken version of the anti-gravity engine. On the other side, Stryker sat limply on the ground, shivering. He slumped decadently in the corner, and there was only a blank look in his eyes. Suddenly, the door opened in front of him, and the professor in a wheelchair slid in, smiling at the pale Stryker. "Your hat!" The professor put Stryker's hat on him. Stryker trembled a few times and quickly took a few steps back. His face was as gloomy as death. "Do you think you can beat me like this? Professor! I will not let you go. I will not let any mutant bastard go." "Shut up!" The laser eyes grabbed him fiercely and slammed him against the wall. "Red-eyed bastard! Coward!" Stryker said frantically. "Do you dare to take off your glasses and let out your 2 light bulb eyes? Come on! I will kill you!" The laser eyes pressed his hand on his glasses angrily. "Scott, stop!" The professor stopped the laser eyes and came to Stryker, sighing. "Even if I don't agree with you, and even hate you, but our purpose is the same, to stop X's behavior. The Department of Defense thinks that we want to cooperate with you, and I need you to do one thing." What is it?" Stryker sneered. "Stop them from releasing Magneto. The Mutants' Brotherhood will not go against X, they will only unite together. It will not work for the Department of Defense to count on them to kill each other." The professor said sincerely. "Okay, I will." Stryker unexpectedly agreed. "But I have a request," he said cunningly. "X-Men, go and catch that man. That's why we are here." The professor sighed. The research on living metal cells went smoothly beyond Chen-Ang's imagination. The knowledge and technology of nanometal robots, metal viruses, and iron-based cosmic life of the Star Wars world were used by Chen-Ong to transform this metal cell. A little silver-gray metal life appeared under Chen-Ang's test bench. Behind him, there were countless test benches working under the control of the gravitational force field. 5 weapons X were sent to the injection table, and the red evolution serum was pushed into their bodies little by little. Chen-Ong, who controlled their personalities, did not care and allowed them to evolve their abilities. Professor X looked at the laboratory in front of him that was bustling with people again and sensed that Magneto's brainwaves had reappeared in New York, and he couldn't help but sigh deeply. In Chen-Ang's heart, a sentence suddenly appeared. "I promise to cooperate with you. You won't regret it." Chapter 86. On the experiment table, 5 weapon XS waited for the injection of the evolution potion. Evolution and longevity were the 2 miracles of the blood orchid. The genes of the Titan serpents showed that they had lived for a long time. Each of them was more than 200 years old, and there were even pythons that had lived for thousands of years. But what Chen Ong paid more attention to was the atavism of their genes. The genes in their bodies were extremely close to their ancestor, the Titan serpent. This discovery directly promoted Chen Ang's further research on the blood orchid. The effect of the blood orchid potion in alleviating aging lay in its unique effect on human genes, the optimization and recombination of excess genes. Chen Ong discovered the secret and developed the potion in two directions. On the one hand, the development of the longevity potion, and on the other hand, the development of gene optimization. This was the follow-up series of the blood orchid potion, the longevity potion and the evolution potion. This blood-red solution was exceptionally precious because it required the natural ingredients of the blood orchid. If the longevity potion was the gentle development of the blood orchid's medicinal properties, then the evolution potion was the complexity and maximization of the blood orchid's gene optimization and change effect. The giant serpent might be able to atavism, but Chen Ong did not want to be an ape-man. The evolution potion was extremely complex, full of unknown and uncontrollable changes. It must be thoroughly studied and controlled in order to be used in a controllable manner. The path of evolution of other creatures was an unknown gamble. Change, then filter, eliminate, or adapt. This was the path of evolution. With the cruelest natural selection, the winner in unknown changes was selected. Nature was like this. Natural selection created all kinds of extremely perfect creatures, including great existences like humans. However, in the invisible place, cruel elimination was also happening. The bones of Homo sapiens, Homo habilis, and other eliminated people could only be in museums for people to visit. The evolution potion was natural selection. Bloody cruelty and directness. This was the path of evolution. But this was not Chen Ang's path. He did not like to leave all choices to nature. He was more willing to learn, research, and explore the mysteries of genes and evolution. In the intricate and astronomical genetic code of humans, he wanted to find its laws and secrets behind it. He was a Taoist, and his path was to study and research. That was why he injected the evolutionary elixir and used his powerful control over his body in an overclocked state to control this process. His genes, changes, and recombination were restricted by him. He was like a beginner chi cultivator who only followed his body to do the most basic breathing and sensing. Chen Ong used his gentle inner force to influence the life force origin and slowly walked along the path that the predecessors had walked. The transformation of qi to the source of life, coupled with the optimization of the evolution potion, could be said to be astonishing progress. However, the mutation of the original genes of the evolution potion seemed unbearably slow. The only esper ability, gravity control, was more of a product of the development of the brain, while the genes only provided a powerful body to carry it. Chen Ang's body had super speed, super strength, and super senses, but it was only limited to the limit of a living creature. It was not a very excellent evolution ability, and compared to the temperature control, environment adaptation, and telepathy of the experimental evolvers, it seemed a little backward and clumsy. But everything was just the beginning. The basic physiological optimization was only the first step of evolution. Chen Ang's path of deciphering and researching human genes, the astronomical genetic code, was like a peerless martial art, and only when it was deciphered step by step could Chen Ong embark on the path of evolution that was suitable for him, the path of cultivation. X-Men, the X-gene, esper abilities and technology, physics and biology, the extremely fragile laws of physics in the energy space, the world that could be easily moved, the laws that were extremely loose for esper abilities and the mysterious mutated genes. This was a world of esper abilities and evolution, a treasure land for Chen Ang's advanced physics and genetic research. The blood-red evolution serum disappeared bit by bit inside the steel man's body. The metallic skin on his skin began to tremble violently like water ripples, squirming and trembling. In his body, A transformation that was reborn was happening intensely. The genetic chromosomes in the cell nucleus suddenly collapsed, and under the effect of the serum, they were rapidly recombined. Some redundant and useless genes underwent obvious changes and mutations during this recombination, and some brand new gene fragments began to play a role. Chun-Ong controlled the experiment platform, providing nutrients and metal materials to the Steel Man, promoting the stable and continuous occurrence of this transformation. War was raging inside the Steel Man's body. The cells that were undergoing complex changes were constantly recombining the genes, increasing in value and strengthening madly. The surface of the Steel Man's body swelled visibly, and crimson heat seeped out from the cracks in his skin. The surrounding metal quickly melted and entered his body. Some of the cell nuclei had different metal components combined to form brand new metal cells. New alloys that could make people go crazy were born in the Steel Man's body, and then they were rapidly eliminated. Many brand new alloy cells with physical properties that could make material scientists go crazy were rapidly eliminated, leaving only the metals that were most suitable for the human body. Countless metal cells were born, evolved, and eliminated. All kinds of incredible black materials rapidly appeared and rapidly disappeared. Superconducting metal cells without resistance, magma metal cells with extremely strong heat conductivity, gravity-free metal cells with their own magnetic fields, liquid metal cells with excellent physical properties at room temperature. These black technologies were produced by an extreme coincidence, and then Chun-Ong extracted them as samples before they rapidly disappeared. At the same time, there were hundreds of millions of metal cells evolving. Most of them were ordinary trash, but in this extremely large sample, there were still many miracles in material science, and every single one of them had the potential to change human technology. But they were still silently dying. Only Chun-Ong had recorded their properties and genes, preserving these precious samples. The miracle produced by the evolution potion combined with the X-gene ability was something that even Chun-Ong could not replicate again. The evolution potion was like a key that opened the treasure trove of wealth on the mutant. Chun-Ong had obtained a lot of precious data from the research on the evolution of the Steel Man alone. There were surprising discoveries about the mutation of the human body, the Steel Esper ability, the X-gene, and alloy materials. Among them, the one that delighted Chun-Ong the most was the research on the solidification of metal cells. This kind of iron-based life form had both the attributes of a technological creation and a life form. It had endless potential. The Steel Man was like a science and technology book. Chun-Ong quickly flipped through the content about metal and life, peeking at all the mysteries of his ability. Chun-Ong did not even need to research to find hundreds of ways to deconstruct him. From then on, the Steel Man's ability was no longer a secret to him. He only needed a specific oxidizer to turn the Steel Man into rust slag. Time flew by quickly. Chun-Ong had long forgotten his joke of destroying the world and devoted himself wholeheartedly to his research. In the Star Wars world, humans built furnaces on white dwarfs, using magnetic fields and gravity to melt metal materials. They even created metal products deep in the stars. Tens of thousands of alien races created countless materials with excellent properties, metals with special physical properties, and there were all kinds of magical metal creatures in the universe. Chun-Ong had even dissected an iron-based life form with his own hands. However, the world where the laws of physics were relatively rigorous was far less crazy than this world. Chun-Ong marveled as he looked at the wriggling metal under his hand, displaying all kinds of incredible abilities. Some abilities even subverted the basic laws of physics, just like Wolverine's resilience that ignored the conservation of mass, and Iceman's ice-making ability that ignored the conservation of energy. "What a crazy world," Chun-Ong said in surprise. In the world before Chun-Ong traveled, humans were lucky enough to peek into a corner of the microscopic world and marveled at the various dazzling wonders in it. The uncertainty principle, electron warp, the observer effect, and the laws of the macroscopic world collapsed here. All the laws of time, space, and determinism were destroyed beyond recognition. However, no matter how strange the microscopic world was, there was an invisible barrier that caused the laws of the microscopic world to collapse in the macroscopic world. From the microscopic to reality, and from reality to the macroscopic world, a change that humans did not understand made the barrier between them like a natural moat. The X-Men world, this natural moat, collapsed. The laws of the microscopic world could break through the barrier and act on the macroscopic world. Atomic collapse, telepathy, space-time travel, electromagnetic effect, space warp, and all kinds of special abilities, in line with the microscopic world, but not in line with the principles of reality, acted on the real world, which made Chen-Ong puzzled. The laws of the microscopic and macroscopic world were intertwined in the real world. Therefore, the laws of physics here were sparse and unusual. Even in the world of Endless, there were only 5 pounds of psychokinesis, but in the X-Men world, it was increased by up to 2,000 times. Chapter 87. A drop of silver metal liquid fell in front of Chen-Eng's eyes, followed by the second drop, the third drop, and so on. Countless drops of liquid metal gathered together and wriggled, forming a human-shaped skeleton. Densely packed metal threads spread along the skeleton. A few seconds later, an intricate and complete robot appeared in front of Chen-Ong. Chen-Ong frowned as he looked at the result that was enough to shock the world. Liquid metal robots have high requirements for energy and lack the ability to replicate themselves. The professor sat in a wheelchair and came to the periphery of the underground base. He looked up at the huge steel creation in the direction of Manhattan from the skylight. There was a trace of unconcealable worry in his eyes. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door behind him. "Come in," the professor said warmly. When the person came in, he was surprised. "Logan? What happened to you?" The professor frowned and looked at the ragged Wolverine in front of him. Wolverine's body was full of scars. What surprised the professor the most was the dim metal organs on his body. Logan's right arm below the elbow was completely replaced by a metal arm. The professor couldn't imagine what made Logan, who had a strong and almost immortal recovery ability, suffer such a serious injury and can't recover. Logan took the cigar out of his mouth and looked at the professor with a smile. "You have become younger." He waved his right hand carelessly. "This is not an injury. I voluntarily transformed into this. As for why, you can enter my brain and have a look." "You know, Logan, I won't enter any of your brains." The professor sighed. "People have free will. I will not invade anyone's privacy if it is not necessary. Now is the time when it is necessary." Logan leaned over and looked at the professor with a trace of sadness in his eyes. "It was the future you who asked me to come over. Take a look." The professor sank into Logan's spiritual sea. He was surprised to see himself and Magneto standing side by side on a crimson wasteland. Behind them were countless robots, mutants and humans fighting side by side like brothers. But the professor was not in the mood to rejoice because his brothers and sisters were falling. Blood and slaughter, steel and flesh, humans with metal prosthetics, together with the mutants, fought against the tide of robots. Those robots controlled their abilities and slaughtered the humans. "Logan, only you can break through the barrier of time and space. Shadowcat will open a space-time tunnel for you, go back to the past, and stop all this from happening," Magneto said hoarsely. After saying this, the old friend closed his eyes. The professor saw himself in front of Logan and left a sentence in his mind. "Trust him. You came from the future, Logan." The professor closed his eyes tiredly. "What happened? Why don't you take a look for yourself?" Logan laughed nonchalantly. "Because I trust you." The professor sighed and said, "The future me doesn't want me to see your memories. He must have his reasons. Tell me, what happened?" "After the apocalypse came, it brought great changes to the world. Our government is afraid of his power. In order to fight against him, an old plan was restarted. They began to develop a weapon against the mutants, the Sentinel robot. Logan took out another cigar, sat on the stool, and puffed out a cloud of smoke. Apocalypse? Is it him? The professor looked at the steel thrown in the distance and sighed. Yes, because he brought 5 things to this world: plague, war, death, famine, and of course the apocalypse. That's why people call him Apocalypse. Logan's tone was very complicated, and the professor could hear something unusual in it. But the apocalypse seems to have been brought by the Sentinel robot. What happened in that world? Why did the Sentinel robot go out of control? They seem to be slaughtering all humans, not just the mutants, the professor said sadly. The Sentinels couldn't do anything to the apocalypse and were easily turned into scrap metal. However, in order to strengthen the power of the Sentinels, the Department of Defense carried out a secret operation. They captured the Demon Woman and used the research results of Weapon X to transplant abilities onto the Sentinels. They established the mutant gene bank and produced robots with different abilities. Logan sighed. The professor looked at him silently, his eyes filled with sorrow. In the end, after the establishment of the gene bank, the apocalypse attacked there and plundered all the genes. The Department of Defense tried to develop a more powerful Sentinel robot, but they lost control of the robot. The Sentinels began to slaughter the mutants, even the carriers of Gene X, and then all humans. Logan said this and suddenly showed a very sarcastic smile. This is actually a joke. We all know that the Department of Defense did not lose control of the Sentinels. They led the massacre of the mutants until the Sentinels really went out of control. Humans created superhuman intelligence and then were replaced by superhuman intelligence. This is the Superman upheaval. At the same time, on the other side, Chen Ong stared at the metal liquid in front of him. A drop of liquid dripped on the ground and then quickly replicated and multiplied on the steel. They piled up into various machines, absorbing energy from the surrounding electromagnetic field. Like a virus, they self-replicated and spread. Chen Ong recorded all kinds of technological information in the form of genetic code in the steel life. They replicated all kinds of technology and even researched and developed the technological genes in their bodies. Chen Ong witnessed with his own eyes that a little steel cell, with enough replication ability, developed from the steam age to the internal combustion age in one afternoon. With energy and raw materials, it could be replicated. This was not scary. However, without energy, self-development. Without raw materials, self-development. With science to deal with everything. In the case of Chen Ong cutting off the energy supply, the steel cell could evolve into solar panels and hydroelectric generators. This was an extremely terrifying thing. This very strong biological metal life had been destroyed by Chen Ong, leaving only a few samples for storage. Humans and mutants united like a real family. No one brought up the mistakes of the past. We all looked forward to the future. Therefore, we hid the fact of the genocide from the public. Logan looked at the professor with a complicated expression. Professor, you led us to Manhattan, opened a ruin, and released Skynet. What's Skynet? How do I know about Skynet? The professor frowned. Skynet is an artificial intelligence, or rather, a collective consciousness program of machines. Since you brought it out of the steel ruins, the liquid metal has become our best weapon. We injected the spinal cord into the metal cells to form our own supermetal, and through magnetic induction, we controlled it. Logan's right arm suddenly fell down and melted into liquid. Under Logan's control, the metal liquid floated up from the ground and skillfully assembled into different weapons. There were throwing knives, guns, javelins, and even electromagnetic cannons. Skynet, also known as war. We used to think that it was our savior because it did not have an intelligent consciousness, but a macro-computing system. Skynet's robot army and humans worked together to defeat the Sentinels, and soon recovered most of the territory. But the ambition of humans destroyed everything. In order to control this weapon, the government came up with a stupid idea. They let the electronic will control this artificial intelligence weapon. At this point, Logan could no longer hide the exhaustion on his face. Then, Skynet had its own consciousness. It awakened. Although the war between it and the Sentinels had to continue, it was not afraid of destroying humanity. It created the Terminator, and together with the Sentinels, they destroyed human society. The professor looked at him sadly and choked. Then you came here? Yes, that time and space. You told me the truth. It was Apocalypse who created War Skynet. He used the cells of the Steelman's body as a carrier and used advanced technology to create self-replicating nanomachines. Using the brain of the Phantom Master as the prototype, he imitated the group consciousness of the nanomachines. Logan said solemnly, when he obtained Magneto's genes, he solved the most critical problem of energy. The Earth's magnetic field and electricity are almost endless. As long as there is raw material, the nanomachines can replicate infinitely. After Skynet awakened, they became a new race. We must stop Apocalypse from creating Skynet and stop him from obtaining Magneto's genes, Logan said solemnly. The professor was confused. What about the Sentinels? Apocalypse will destroy them. We just need to stop the government from using them again. In the future, the Sentinels were almost destroyed by Skynet. They were driven to human settlements to compete for living space with humans. This time, not only did I travel through time and space with the help of Shadowcat, Skynet also sent the Terminator, Logan said solemnly. It will kill the person in charge of the Sentinel project and destroy the Sentinels of the future. We must destroy the prototype of Skynet and kill the electronic will. Countless nanomachines converged into an ocean. They were connected to each other through weak electromagnetic waves. The vague group consciousness was heavily programmed by Chen-Ong learning from the metal virus. Chen-Ong did not develop anything too dangerous this time. He only wrote a vague AI program for the nanomachines. He also set up many restrictions, not giving the AI a chance to develop independently. Something as terrifying as the metal virus showed the horror of artificial life. Even Chen-Ong had to carefully explore this forbidden technology. If he was not careful, he could destroy the world. Of course, the nanomachines were much more common. These were not mainstream in the world of Star Wars, so they did not pose much of a threat. That was what Chen-Ong thought. The silver-gray ocean was magnificent. Chen-Ong stood on this torrent of machines, controlling the nanomachines to construct countless strange structures. He controlled them to replicate himself and felt the rigid machine program. Chapter 88. The ocean of knowledge was endless. The higher Chen-Ong went, the wider the world became. The deeper he learned, the more he realized how ignorant he was. Even though Chen-Ong maintained the habit of researching and learning for more than 8 hours a day, he still felt more and more powerless. In the face of the vast unknown, the efforts of a single person were too insignificant. When he came out of the laboratory, the moonlight had already passed through the gap in the atrium and shone on the high platform. Another day of research is over. Chen-Ong looked at the bright moonlight and said in realization. He held a 6-sided metal Rubik's Cube in his hand, which emitted a white glow under the moonlight. Chen-Ong let go of his hand and looked at the metal Rubik's Cube floating in the air. Suddenly, he said to the AI program that assisted in the management, Skynet, begin testing. Third space metal testing test. Beginning recording. The dull electronic voice came from the high platform. Several lasers were shot from all directions, forming a small laser screen that shrouded the metal Rubik's Cube. Chen-Ong gently tapped the front of the Rubik's Cube, and it began to spin on its own. Amid the mechanical sounds, the Rubik's Cube's modules increased bit by bit. In a short while, it had expanded to dozens of times its original size. The original 64 small modules of 4 horizontal and 4 vertical quickly split into 16 horizontal and 16 vertical Rubik's Cubes of the same size. The volume of the Rubik's Cube increased by 64 times. The Rubik's Cube did not stop spinning. It began to spread out rapidly, and each small module disintegrated rapidly. Countless small modules were arranged and combined continuously. In midair, the outline of a floating positron cannon gradually formed. The huge cannon was the size of a house, and it took up more than half of the platform. Its smooth metal surface and delicate mechanical structure made it hard to believe that this was once a palm-sized Rubik's Cube in Chen-Ang's hand. Space Metal Module. Structure of Floating Positron Cannon Type 1. Maximum space expansion ratio is 1/100,000. Design parameters are met. Do you want to charge the positron cannon? Skynet asked rigidly. No. Chen-Ang put away the spatial metal module. The huge module was quickly compressed into its original shape, and Chen-Ang put it back into his palm. The development of space metal was very successful. In fact, even Chen-Ang did not expect it to go so smoothly. It could only be said that gravity control had a great advantage in the research of space physics in this world. Gravity was the study of space and mass. Chen-Ang had not only made rapid progress in space physics, but he also had a deeper understanding of the mass effect. Mass and space were closely related and had a distinct system. They were like two sides of a piece of white paper called gravity. They were closely related in many aspects of science. Because of this, Chen-Ang was finally able to apply gravity distortion to real matter and finally developed space metal, a product that completely dissected matter and space. Although the success of space metal was mostly due to the special microscopic laws of this world, it was different from metal cells. Chen-Ang was confident that he could replicate this metal in other worlds. Perhaps the effect would be reduced, but it could still solve the problem of Chen-Ang being unable to carry too much matter. During the process of Chen-Ang's transmigration, the huge changes in space could almost destroy all spatial items. Only matter could be protected by his transmigration ability and pass through the tunnel. Space metal was developed based on this reason. When he walked to the door, Chen-Ang saw Death's attendant wandering around. He had already taken off his mask, and Chen-Ang unstitched his mouth. He looked like a heroic young man. Boss, you look like you had a good night. Did you create a cyborg for yourself? I know you can do it. Wade, if you don't want me to be like your former boss, you'd better lower your sense of humor. Chen-Ang's face was calm. He looked at the Manhattan River under the moonlight and watched the full moon rise high. The silver river slowly flowed to the sea, and his temperament became more and more ethereal. He heard Wade's witty words and warned him without turning his head. When Wade heard what he said, it was as if it came from the infinite sky. Wade stared at Chen-Ang with wide eyes, as if he wanted to find something, but he eventually gave up in frustration because he could no longer see Chen-Ang clearly. Chen-Ang seemed to be shrouded in moonlight, and there was a layer of white fog around him. How are the cancer cells? Chen-Ang tilted his head and looked at him. Wade grinned and said, I don't think I've ever felt so good. You know, I've been dreaming about how handsome I am these days. He narcissistically admired the smooth metal wall for a long time and said obsessively, It's this handsome. I feel like I'm a little more handsome after I've recovered from my illness. I once swore that if someone saved my face, I would treat the world well and treat everyone a little better. Wade said seriously, Boss, I'll be working under you in the future. Please make sure that I'm healthy. Please love your employees as you love yourself. I don't keep idle people. Tell me what you can do. Chen-Ang looked at him. I only know how to kill, boss. Wade said solemnly. Chen-Ang looked at him for a while and sighed in disappointment. You're still a warrior. It sounds amazing, but unfortunately, if that's all you have, you'll be fired. I don't lack trash that can only kill people here. As if to prove Chen-Ang's words, behind him, the Skynet robots quickly reassembled, and dozens of liquid robots carrying ray guns appeared in front of Wade. The ferocious war weapons reflected the cold light of metal. They were born to kill. Deadpool swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said with a smile, I can see it, I can see it. Can you tell them to stay away from me? They make me feel a little uncomfortable. Chen-Ong ignored his request and said seriously, Can you teach yourself some surgical medicine? I'm still short of experimental assistants, or a degree in theoretical physics or space physics to help me do some more dangerous experiment. To be honest, I'm short of a fearless assistant like you. Wade blinked and suddenly said, Boss, do you have someone you hate? I'll help you kill him. I'm a quick killer. It seems that you don't want to learn this. Chen-Ong said lightly, Research or be researched, this is a question. I thought you would choose the right one. To be honest, what's the use of people who can only kill in this world? Robots can do it better than you. Skynet, specializing in a million kinds of killing techniques, has endless robot clones. I just need to do the next task and the program will complete it by itself. Chen-Ong sighed and said, It seems that you only have the value of being researched. Wait, boss. Deadpool hurriedly said, I think I can still be saved. What do you want me to do? Just say it. I'm actually a very smart person and I learn very quickly. You're not an honest person, Wade. Chen-Ong said slowly, You have cancer and I can treat it, so you work for me. Just like Stryker for Weapon X for the US government. You support whoever has the money. But I'm not like them, Wade. I don't need you. You're not as valuable as you think. This means one thing, I won't tolerate you that much. Boss can tolerate the willfulness of his excellent employee, but it doesn't mean that a loser has bargaining chips. Don't show off your cleverness here, Wade. I know what you're doing behind my back. If there were no robots, I would teach you how to be a man. Wade curled his lips. Chen-Ong slowly stretched out his hand, and Wade saw nanomachines quickly carrying metal particles, smelting and hammering in midair. In just a breath's time, a furnace made of nanomachines appeared in front of the two. The crimson metal solution, under the control of machinery, was cooled and shaped, forged in the electromagnetic furnace, then tempered, quenched, and cooled. When a silver-white metal sword came to Chen-Ang's hand, the whole process took no more than 3 minutes. The power of Skynet was fully displayed, and Wade had to hold his breath and feel the suffocating power of technology. When Chen-Ang's hand held the hilt of the sword, there was an indescribable and inexplicable feeling that made the hair on Wade's back stand up, as if facing something terrible, a sharp feeling like the tip of a knife across the skin. P.S. When it goes on sale tomorrow, I have to sort out the outline. There is only 1 chapter today. For the next week, I will maintain 3 chapters a day. For this reason, I have specially sorted out the outline and paved the way for the next 30,000 words of plot. It's the first time for me to update with such a high intensity. It's scary to think about it. Many readers in the book review area don't know where chapters 81, 82, and 83 are. In fact, they are the first, second, and third previews. I have counted them in the number of chapters. The previews and the main text are seamlessly connected. By the way, I will ask for the first chapter for tomorrow. 3 chapters a week. Although it may not be as refreshing as some books, 5 chapters and 10 chapters, it's already vomiting blood for me. Chapter 89. Rex. Deadpool gently took off the adamantium katana from his back. The blade was cold and bright like a pool of clear water, refreshing. In his eyes, the world suddenly became very slow, so slow that even the cold light reflected by the blade was clear and transparent. The tip of the blade lightly pressed forward, making a katana-style appearance. Then, the blade light was like snow. Deadpool's nerve reflex speed was enough for him to see the flying bullet clearly. His body's coordination and flexibility could also keep up with this terrible reaction speed. The keen sense tempered between life and death allowed Deadpool to make accurate judgments at a critical moment. He replaced his brain with intuition. Deadpool's katana technique is direct and accurate. He abandoned all changes of martial arts and dragged the opponent into a rapid battle with his super sense of time. Under the speed, all skills are empty words. But intuition is intuition, skills are skills. When there is a terrible existence in the world who replaces the subconscious with consciousness and is more sensitive to time than Deadpool, the straightforward katana technique becomes a ridiculous existence. Chen Ong stretched out 2 fingers, and in this terrible state of life and death, like taking something out of his pocket, he clamped the invincible adamantium katana. His nails were neatly trimmed and his hands were well protected. His slender and white fingers didn't even have calluses formed by long-term friction, just like a pair of ornaments. Deadpool also secretly laughed at these hands because they grew on the body of a weak gigolo. But it was these 2 fingers, like an iron clamp, firmly clamped Deadpool's blade. Deadpool swallowed a mouthful of saliva and looked at his katana with a little fear. It grew on Chen Eng's left hand like a root. I think everything is fine. What did you just say? In fact, the plan of the Earth King has nothing to do with me. You don't seem to be fast enough, Chen Ong said with a smile. That depends on who you want to compare with, Wade habitually said. Then, he knew he was wrong. Chen Ong didn't like his mouth. The sword was not fast. Or it could be said that Chen Ong did not make it that fast. To a master of gravity manipulation, speed, time, and space were no obstacles. As long as Chen Ong was willing, he could even make the sword move. It appeared directly in Deadpool's heart. However, this time, Chen Ong did not use his special ability to cheat. Bullying an idiot who did not understand physics could not be done for a long time. Otherwise, it would quickly lose its fun. He just used ordinary strength and ordinary speed to perform his swordsmanship that was not surprising at all. It did not affect the physical constants and the laws of the world, and Deadpool could even see it clearly. The blade was crawling towards him bit by bit, as slow as a snail with his reaction speed. At this moment, he could make 16 slashes. How could such a sword technique hurt people? When Deadpool saw the blood on his neck fluttering like a flag, his heart was still full of confusion. The blade had already passed through his throat. He was powerless and couldn't even avoid this slow blade. When he dodged the stab of the sword, Chen Eng's sword immediately underwent an unexpected transformation. He only used 13 transformations. Deadpool was forced into a corner and had to parry with his long sword. When the sword and saber clashed, his hands felt an indescribable tremor. His long sword was easily knocked away by Chen Ong. A hidden destructive force disrupted Deadpool's coordination ability. He could even feel that his internal organs had been shaken out of insignificant damage, destroying his mobility, and it took time to recover. In the next moment, his throat was pierced by the blade. Not only are you not fast enough, even your skills are a little lacking. Chen Ong wiped the dull blade, leaving no trace on it, and the blood slipped from the blade as if it had never existed. Wade opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but the burning pain in his throat made him give up this move. He was surprised to find that his recovery ability was suppressed to the lowest level. Although he didn't die, it was difficult to heal the wound. Blood stained his chest, and Deadpool habitually ignored it, but now he found his fatal mistake. His legs softened and he knelt on the ground, feeling the gradual loss of strength in his body and the dizziness when the blood left his body. Abilities are the third hand of human beings, or even the sixth sense. You should observe, use, and feel them. Humans use their hands to create tools, not to pick up stones and wave them. Such a simple and extremely easy to crack application is like a child playing house. Your abilities are no longer a secret in front of me. Chen Ong stood in front of Wade solemnly, controlling the nanorobots to repair Wade's wound, and sighed. The same ability can't be used a second time in front of scientists. Because after we study it clearly, that kind of thing has no secret. You need to develop a new unique skill. He turned around and prepared to leave. Suddenly, a huge hole broke open in the ground. Under Chen Ang's feet, the ground became as muddy as a swamp, and Chen Ang's feet were trapped. How is it? Our new unique skill is not bad, right? Steel Man rushed over from the side and grinned. Thanks to you, our arcana has undergone a brand new change. The change in the substance of fluids can make the properties of steel become like glue. Your fragile body is nothing without your arcana. Where did the gravity control go? You can try it. See if the iron blade pierces your body faster or the speed at which your ability works. You lifted the illusion master's shackles, which is your biggest mistake. As if to vent his dissatisfaction of being a test subject, Steel Man controlled his body and sprouted ferocious steel thorns. Now, I'm going to use the gift you gave me to teach you a lesson. He waved the alloy thorns on his arm and walked toward Chen Ong. Did you hear what I said just now? Chen Ong said lightly. Steel Man didn't expect him to say that. He was stunned and asked back, What? If you heard it, you should know that your abilities have no secrets in front of me. Chen Ong gently walked out of the quagmire. The fluid behind him faded away little by little. The changes on his body were sealed in steel as he screamed. Steel Man was stunned by this sudden change. He watched in horror as the fluid was covered by nanomachines. Chen Ong easily got rid of their trap and came in front of them. There are two obvious mistakes in your words. First, leave the ability. I still have my brain. Even if you don't have an ability, with your abilities that have been thoroughly studied, it is impossible for you to deal with me. The nanomachines quickly appeared around him and climbed onto Steel Man's body. He was horrified to find that the nanomachines flashing with electromagnetic light made his body almost paralyzed. He couldn't control himself. Chen Ong came in front of him. He said lightly, Second, the ones who are really weak without the ability are you. You think I'm fighting with you? Chen Ong sneered, but in fact the battle ended 3 days ago. Exploring the unknown, studying the law of your abilities, and exploring the mysteries of your abilities. In science, I and your abilities are engaged in a battle full of unknown possibilities. I may lose, but I may also win. Science is an unknown. When I'm researching, it's a fierce battle. It was an intense battle. They used their wisdom and knowledge to explore, to battle with the unknown, and to battle with themselves. This battle is so magnificent. When the experiment is over, I've solved the unknown secrets of your abilities. At that time, I've already won. The nanomachines sprayed synthetic substances, and Steel Man's body quickly began to rust. The hard alloy steel shattered into debris in the air. Steel Man screamed as he looked at his limbs, which became fragile in the air. A little special rust agent made him completely fall into a life-threatening crisis. The scientific battle between me and your abilities is already over. Your challenge is just to make me repeat the process of solving the problem. And your abilities, except for your abilities, are all zero. It's not even within the scope of consideration for solving the problem. To be honest, you are simply upright ape. If a monkey were to come, the abilities given to them would not be too bad. Steel Man's face turned ashen. Even Deadpool on the side was worried. Chen Ong set a fatal point. Without their abilities, what were they? So the battle was Chen Ang's battle with the abilities, not with them. When the abilities lost, their wisdom and abilities were completely useless. Chen Ong said lightly, How many ways do you think I have to deal with your alloy body? Oxidation, rust, electromagnetism, metal-eating bacteria. A solved problem can be solved again. There can be many answers. This is purely physical work. I take action and then you lose. You didn't even give me an unknown variable. Chen Ong stepped aside, revealing Earth King sealed in concrete. He came to Steel Man and let the nanomachines repair his body. Also, I don't like to control people, so you can get rid of Jason's sensory control. I think the wisdom of human beings will let you give me different surprises, not like robots. I don't lack powerful subordinates. Unfortunately, you have forgotten how to use your brain to think and live like animals. The curiosity of the unknown, the courage and wisdom to explore the unknown, is what separates humans from other animals. Chunong walked out and let the robots send them back to the laboratory. He didn't have any expectations for Earth King and the others. Without enough wisdom and knowledge, they couldn't even understand their own strength, like a child waving a sledgehammer. When Chunong removed the sledgehammer, they were useless like trash. Chunong didn't even care about controlling such people, because they wouldn't improve even if he did it 100 times. After thoroughly studying their abilities, they were only worth as experiment subjects to Chunong. Chunong gave them a chance to show their abilities as warriors. Unfortunately, they didn't use their brains. In the end, this group of experiment subjects only had the fate of being experimented on. They thought that their failure was accidental, but they didn't know that. The same problem couldn't stump a scientist twice. To be continued. P.S. This is the first chapter of the third Watt. Next is a week of explosive time. Everyone, quickly throw your monthly tickets to me to replenish your stamina and inspiration. The support of the readers is my inexhaustible motivation. Thank you to everyone who has been with me. Thank you for continuing to walk with me. Chapter 90. Rex. Deadpool took the 2 adamantium alloy knives and set off. After the modulation of the evolution potion, there are not many places that can stop the elusive Deadpool. Skynet's nanomachines will assist him in completing the tasks assigned by Chunong Sir. Jason bowed humbly, Chunong nodded, and he came in carefully. After some training, the Phantom Master was very clear about his position. Even his mental illness was improved under Chunong's destruction. Now, together with Deadpool, he has become Chunong's right-hand man, which is very different from the other 3 experimental subjects. Of course, the so-called right-hand man is only Jason himself. Chunong, who has Skynet, does not think that he is short of action talent. He just doesn't want Skynet to be exposed to the world too early, so he accepted these 2 errand boys. You guys work on this mission together. Chunong was busy with the experiment in his hand and ordered casually. I will fully support Deadpool's mission. Jason replied cautiously. No, if he can't even get back an adamantium, he doesn't need to come back. Chunong said indifferently. He raised his head and looked at Jason. When Deadpool comes back, you will go with him and say hello to the White House. Pay attention, don't scare our president, the target. Just shave off his hair. We know, sir. Jason quickly agreed. Jason soon left, and Chunong was still in front of the test bench, but he had stopped the experiment in his hand. Skynet, seal this area. Level 3 alert. Chunong ordered lightly. Roger. The red light in midair flickered twice, and countless nanomachines surrounded and blocked the laboratory where Chunong was. Countless liquid-like robots formed a huge secret room, and an old man in a wheelchair appeared opposite Chunong and nodded to Chunong. Chunong knew that the professor was still dozens of miles away, and this was just his consciousness projection. Stop the war. That was enough. Not only did the war not alleviate the conflict between the mutated humans and humans, but it also aggravated the conflict in society. Is there any other way? The professor sighed. What is it? Continue to be a superhero and fight crime? But people would only remember the pain that the mutants had caused them. You will remember your covetous eyes on the dominance of human society, but you will not remember your efforts for peace. Chunong looked at the professor and went straight to the point. The professor was silent. He could already feel the undercurrent, the increasingly intense conflict. The racial war was right in front of them. The conflict between the 2 sides had been suppressed to the extreme. Even he felt a trace of fatigue, and had the consciousness of sacrificing himself. Mutants were once the pride of evolution, but now you are just the eliminated ones of society. Chunong pointed out mercilessly, Professor, the differences between humans and animals are social and economic. culture, industry, technology, and creativity. Mutants are nothing in these aspects. Most of the mutants live at the bottom of society. They think with their muscles and fists. Your social form is closer to some dynamic social organizations that worship power and have a clear hierarchy. Perhaps the mutants were once wealth. Superpowers are also talents, but now the mutants are the cancer and residue of society. Looking at the professor's face getting paler and paler, Chen Ong sighed. Please forgive me for being so direct. You are right. The professor sighed. We have not adapted to this society. This is our biggest problem. Superpowers are wealth, but we have power, but we have no contribution to society. We ask for power, but we have no contribution. This is why ordinary people are most hostile to us. You have superpowers. You should be better, but you don't. In human society, showing off your power like animals will only be met with disdain. Humans are divided by status and wealth. Chen Ong raised his hand and said, Superpowers should be your third hand. It brings you unparalleled talent. Learn, create, explore, use it to develop your own wisdom and contribute to the advancement of mankind, instead of indulging in power. You seem to have evolved, but your society is regressive. Chen Ong gently flicked a few times in the void, and beautiful notes came from his hand. With great power comes great responsibility. Cherish talent and develop wisdom. Mutants should be more outstanding people, not a group of lunatics who only know how to destroy. Chen Ong looked at the professor and said solemnly, Use your power to create, not to destroy. Use your power to help others, not to be above them. This is the promise I have kept all my life, and it is also my insistence. X-Men, help others with our own power. We choose to integrate into humanity and make our contribution. The professor took a deep breath. So we are not the same kind of people. You look forward to peace, but I look forward to progress more. Chen Ong said seriously, Superpowers are a kind of wealth, a kind of outstanding talent. Mutants should not simply integrate into this society, but should lead the development of the era, use their potential to move forward, improve, and promote the progress of human society and science. I look forward to the day when you use your abilities to explore the unknown and nature. You use your wisdom to develop your own abilities, and let your superpowers become your third hand, your third eye, your second brain, and liberate your creative ability. That is the world I look forward to and work hard for. I know what they are afraid of. The professor said worriedly, Talent should not be a shackle of a person. There are strong and weak innate abilities. This difference in ability makes ordinary people fear us, worried that we will establish a social system above them, worried that we will use our superpowers to distinguish ranks and status. If we don't solve these things and blindly promote the progress of this society, it will only bring destruction. We don't have a second chance, the professor said excitedly. You mean the news brought back by Wolverine? Chen Ong smiled and sat in front of the professor, crossing his hands and looking at him playfully. You know? The professor was surprised. Chen Ong came to his ear and whispered, Trust him. The professor turned around in shock and stood up. His virtual shadow abandoned the wheelchair and looked at Chen Ong solemnly. After a long time, he sat down again. I always thought that this sentence was for me to trust Logan. But now I understand that this sentence should be for you. There has always been a doubt that has troubled me. Now I understand. You brought Logan back. The person who let him come here is not Phantom Cat. It is you. I would like to hear more. Chen Ong spread his hands and motioned for him to continue. There is a problem with what Phantom Cat said. Let's not talk about the space-time barrier, but Logan's mind transmigrated. It is impossible for him to carry a liquid metal arm. Unless someone gave him one, and that person can only be me. Chen Ong admitted frankly. Yes, it was me who caused Logan's space-time travel. Gravity is an ability closely related to space-time. I found this possibility in the time vector, the possibility of the world's destruction. What is interesting is that you still haven't given up hope. The end of the world is not the result I want, so I helped you. You put the possibility of Logan's future into his brain. The professor said seriously, Skynet is real, and everything in the future is real, but that is only a possibility. And it is the biggest possibility, so I want to change it. I think the idea of reversing the future is very good. Chen Ong smiled. The liquid metal robot is an interesting change. I am just sharing it with you. In the future, it will solve the problem of the status of mutants and ordinary people. It can give ordinary people superpowers. The professor reacted sharply. Metal superpower cells, something that is being developed. It is very dangerous, but according to my speculation, after it is fused with human stem cells, it can simulate the X gene, Chen Ong said lightly. So you want the Sentinel project to be carried out. You want to use the X gene pool of each country to decipher the secrets of the X gene. Develop this technology? The professor looked at Chen Ong and his eyes were serious. No, this is just a side project. I have a strong interest in scientific research and genetic code. Even without this, I will do this. Everything is for the sake of moving forward, Chen Ong said lightly. You want the United States to feel strong pressure. When conventional weapons can't do anything, they can only choose the direction of the X gene. No matter which direction they choose, you can reap their result. This is your purpose. Is Skynet also developed for this reason? The professor asked. No, Skynet is the next step of the plan. If the Sentinels are too dangerous, Skynet will protect humanity. If they are not strong enough, then Skynet will be humanity's enemy. No matter what, you need a strong external pressure to promote the union of mutants and humans, to help you move forward. Of course, you can also clean up the old, rotten, and hindering factors of social progress. This will promote the change of blood in human society, Chen Ong said seriously. Why are you doing this? The professor couldn't help but ask. We can wait and not make the choice for them. We don't know if what we are doing is right or wrong. We don't have the right to make the choice for the world. There is a limit to human strength. I can't move forward alone. So, I am dragging the whole world into this. Either they will walk to the end with me, or they will be destroyed together. It is not practical for me to promote the development of science with my time and energy alone. So, I want the world to become my laboratory, and let all of humanity move forward with me, Chen Ong said with a smile. This is crazy. The professor sighed helplessly. No, not at all. Skynet has been unfolded, and the Terminators are already in place. Not only Logan, but I also created other reborn from the future. They will speed up this process. As long as we put a little more pressure on the US government, they will start Project X and collect the genes of mutants. You have already started, right? The professor said seriously. Yes, Deadpool is a talent. I mean, his mouth can drive the president crazy. This huge and old bureaucratic machine will run like crazy. My first goal is the mutant gene bank. Of course, it hasn't started yet. You want to invade the White House? The professor said angrily. You will intensify the contradictions of the whole society. No, with the main contradiction of the destruction of the Earth. Human beings have no intention of fighting each other. When the meteorite falls, their only choice is to unite and deal with me, the enemy of the world. And what is the White House? It's just a slap on the face of this bureaucratic machine. With those people's faces, maybe they will forget in a blink of an eye. What I want is to grab their lifeblood and make them panic, fear, and have difficulty sleeping. Chen Ong pointed to the map. What about the Federal Reserve? You are going to destroy the financial industry, the professor said slowly. These vampires that hinder the development of society should have died long ago, shouldn't they? Chen Ong smiled and said, It was my wish for a long time to put street lights on the streets of bankers. Of course, this time I am here to destroy their money. I will stop you, the professor said firmly. Welcome. Chen-Ong nodded. This time, I will do it myself. The professor's shadow slowly dissipated. Chen-Ong knew that he and the professor had reached a certain tacit understanding. The professor would not agree with his ideas, but he would cooperate when appropriate. The journey of mankind should be the sea of stars. I will wait for you to move forward, Chen-Ong said to the air. He knew that the professor could hear it. To be continued. Chapter 91. Renks. At night, a Caucasian youth woke up from a nightmare. He sat on the bed and gasped for breath. He reached out his hands to touch his surroundings. The young man's hands and feet were restless as he impatiently pushed the bits and pieces on the table to the ground, causing them to crash into each other. He stumbled his way to the table lamp before turning it on in a panic. The bright light made the youth relax. Only then did he have the mood to look around. It would have been better if he didn't look. The moment he looked, the youth rolled off the bed and onto the floor. He shouted in shock, "Where is this? Isn't this my home from 30 years ago? Oh my God!" He hurriedly ran off the bed and went to the bathroom. When he saw himself in the mirror, he was stunned. "I'm Jean. This is me when I was young." Jean rushed out of the bathroom and went to the living room. He took out his phone and looked at the time. He covered his mouth and sat on the floor. He trembled as he held the phone. Tears flowed out. This is October 30th years ago. This month, the apocalypse came and turned Manhattan into ruins. This month, it was the beginning of all nightmares. This month, it was also the eve of war, the beginning of everything. This was a magnificent era. After the apocalypse came, the curtains of superpowers and science, robots and humans, war and war, iron and blood began in this month. Jean covered his mouth. He couldn't control his excitement. The Sentinel massacre hasn't started yet. Skynet is still quietly in Manhattan. I don't know if it has been born yet. The government's stupid actions haven't started yet. Everything still has a chance. As long as we can stop all of this, the future apocalypse won't happen. At this time, I'm just a carrier of the X gene. The future supermetal and liquid alloy technology hasn't been invented by the apocalypse. I don't have superpowers. I only have passion and courage. I also have the combat skills and marksmanship that I trained in the future. The greater the power, the greater the responsibility. I know that in the future, I will definitely be able to destroy the apocalypse and Skynet. I will save this world. Jean was excited as he thought about the exciting parts. He started to recall the memories he knew. It seemed to be the effect of going back to the past. He could even remember the next few days. Those things happened a long time ago, but his memory of his transmigration was very vague. Jean did not take it to heart, thinking that this was a normal phenomenon of time and space reversing. In the future, the Esper ability developed by the superalloy for Xeon was mental connection, which was an extremely common ability. However, Jean had always found it strange. It was as if his supernatural ability was not limited to that. This time, he understood a little. His supernatural ability should be the 5 senses synchronicity, which helped him transmit his memories and thoughts back to the past. Jean began to think and remember very seriously. Who is Apocalypse? No one knew. Where did he come from? No one knew. This man was like a mystery. Jean had only heard of his legend, the Apocalypse, the man who brought war, death, plague and famine, the devil who gave humans Pandora's box. In Jean's awakening, after becoming a determined warrior, he disappeared, leaving behind only legends and, of course, Skynet. Thinking of Skynet, Xeon clenched his fists tightly. By now, Skynet should have been born. He couldn't stop it, nor could he stop Apocalypse from creating its Warbringer. The future once represented hope, but later brought despair and pain to humanity. Skynet's nanomachines, Warbringer, and Skynet's liquid battle robots, Terminator. The core of Warbringer's remains was the precious superalloy, the weapon of the future humans. I need superalloy. Gene made up his mind. Without power, I can't change the tragedy of the future. Whether it is Skynet or the Sentinels, I can't stop them. I must become stronger and contact the X-Men. Gene frowned. Scott is not a qualified leader. His naivety and impulsiveness are not suitable for war. I will turn the tide, defeat Apocalypse, and win freedom for humanity. Only I can lead the X-Men from one victory to another. Skynet and the Sentinels have not fully evolved. I know their weaknesses, and I can destroy them before they become stronger. Gene was in high spirits. He hurriedly combed his hair and walked out of the house. As soon as he walked out, Gene saw a huge ruin in the distance. A city of steel stood in the center of Manhattan. Dark clouds hung low, connecting with the dark city. In the future, there will be a huge crater here. The river will converge into a lake, and the steel ruins will be at the bottom of the lake. Apocalypse was a level 6 mutant, a level specially set for him. He controlled gravity, and was also called the Master of Gravity or the King of Attraction. He was a truly invincible and terrifying opponent. Gene thought of the gravity formulas determined by him in the textbooks, and couldn't help but tremble. These could be said to be the foundation of Apocalypse's power and wisdom, but every mutant suffered the destruction of his spatial mathematics. When Gene thought about the complicated formulas required for the supercomputer to run, as well as the spatial math problems and exercises that force psychics to their deaths, the calculation methods, and the principle of imagination, as a typical bad student with low intelligence, a community college graduate, Gene felt a chill in his heart. That's the natural fear of a top student. Even if Gene was confident, he still didn't want to go against Apocalypse unless it was absolutely necessary. Imaginary mathematics, spatial mathematics, thinking of these terrifying knowledge that subverted common sense, Gene was afraid to see him. That's right, Tianchi is a very patient person. He loves knowledge, and these are things that he researched in the future. He probably doesn't know about them yet. If I use these things, I should be able to exchange them for supermetals. Gene, who was calculating how to exchange Chen Eng's knowledge with him, probably didn't expect that he and a few reborn people were under the pursuit of Skynet. He was excitedly planning his future. The biggest opportunity in these few days should be Apocalypse's destruction of the Federal Reserve. The 12 Federal Reserve banks were breached one by one in 3 days. First was New York, then Chicago, then Los Angeles. All the financial information and gold reserves were destroyed, and the financial industry suffered an unparalleled blow. After that, the Sentinel Project had more than 10 banks to provide funds. Did Apocalypse do it on purpose? The future Sentinels didn't cause him any trouble, but the humans who created them had to rely on Skynet to resist? Gene recalled the popular conspiracy theory of the future. Professor and Apocalypse had long been in cahoots, and the Sentinels grew under his connivance. Gene suddenly opened his mouth and laughed. What nonsense am I thinking? How is this possible? Gene waved his hand and stopped a taxi. He got up and got in the car. He wanted to go to the Federal Reserve Bank to take a look. In the future, there were many places where he could get a bargain. As long as he was careful, it was possible to get a semi-finished supermetal. After I get it, I'll give it to Magneto. In the future, he can copy the finished product. It shouldn't be difficult now. Going to the Federal Reserve Bank? Gene and the driver talked. There are quite a lot of people going there today. The driver turned the car around and chatted with Gene. My colleague just drove a strange man. He was wrapped up tightly in a hot day and looked like a wanted criminal. He was going to a place like a bank. My colleague asked him to show his ID. Guess what he said? The driver answered his own question. He said, "He's from the Federal Shield, haha." The Federal Shield. Gene's face became serious. This is the government's agency in charge of major crises. This news, there's something unusual about it. There's another customer who is also going to the Federal Reserve Bank. He's Chinese. I saw his car, but he waved his hand and asked me to stop. He didn't want to take his own car but wanted to take a taxi. Asians are strange. He was wearing a pair of sunglasses and didn't take them off until he got out of the car. How rude. What does he look like? He's no different from other Asians. Small eyes, short nose, yellow skin. I can't tell, you know. His hair seems to be quite long, and he looks quite elegant. Does he have a very special gaze? Clearly behind the sunglasses, but you can feel that he's looking at you. There's a kind of temperament that allows you to recognize him at a glance in a sea of people. Even if he's Asian, he's different from other Asians. There's a very special feeling about him. If you see him, you won't forget him. Jean was sweating profusely. Yes, do you know him? I'd rather not know him. Did he still have a rose cufflink? The rose gold kind? Jean's voice became more and more shaky. Even the driver felt that something was wrong. Sir, what's wrong? We're already here. Let's go. Jean grabbed his hand and said anxiously. Seeing that the driver didn't move, he repeated, hurry. Before he finished, a huge alloy door slammed into the ground in front of them. Jean saw the existence of countless nightmares. It walked past him and entered the Federal Reserve Bank. To be continued. Ch 123. Chapter 92. Rex. Chen Ong gently pushed open the glass door of the Federal Reserve Bank. His shadow was reflected on the smooth marble floor, and the crisp sound of footsteps could be heard. The people in the lobby all turned their heads in surprise. A young customer service staff came up and said to Chen Ong, "I'm sorry, sir, the bank is closed today. We've caused you inconvenience. Hey! Stop right there!" A man in police uniform shouted. Chen Ong stopped and looked at him with a smile. "Take off your glasses. We suspect you are related to terrorists. Now, put your hands on your head and get down on the floor." The police officer shouted. He frowned and looked at Chen Ong. He placed his right hand on the frame of his glasses and raised his gun impatiently. "I told you to get down. Now, put your hands on your head." The female customer service staff's face was pale. She said to Chen Ong, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She begged him to follow the police officer's instructions. Chen Ong took off his glasses, and the impatient police officer stepped forward. He saw the customer service staff looking at Chen Ong with her mouth wide open. The young woman's legs were trembling, and she could not stand steadily. Tears were flowing out of her glasses. She opened her mouth a few times and said in a trembling voice, "Sir, I don't know anything. Don't kill me." The officer pulled the woman away and raised the gun in his hand. He was shocked to see that the silver frame in Chen Ang's hand had turned into gravel and slipped from his hand, disappearing on the floor. "Put your hands on your head or I will shoot." No. The customer service staff had recognized Chen Ong. She recognized this young man from the Empire State Building a few days ago. She tried to stop the police officer. But it was too late. The bullet was fired out of the gun. The shiny brass bullet was fired out of the gun at an astonishing speed. The customer service staff could see it clearly. The bullet was changing shape, softening, and twisting at the muzzle. The parts of the machine quickly assembled and formed something like a mini-aircraft. The bullet flew back into the gun. Then, the entire pistol in the policeman's hand began a series of transformations. The transforming machine coiled around his wrist like a snake, rapidly perfecting and transforming itself in front of the female customer service agent. At a speed visible to the naked eye, the structure became extremely complicated. The police officers screamed and shouted for help. The surrounding security personnel, police officers and special service personnel quickly gathered there, but the hall had already undergone a drastic change. All the metal objects, whether it was the safety door or the door, had been destroyed. Ornaments, even the nib of a pen, the buckle of a belt. They all began to transform and attack. As the metal particles attacked the nearest humans, they quickly gathered together to form tiny mechanical insects. They pounced on the others and drilled into their bodies, causing them to faint and faint. Dozens of security personnel collapsed on the marble slabs, their guns. They agilely crawled on the ground and gathered in front of Chen-Ong. A huge metal pillar appeared in front of everyone. It inserted its tentacles into the wires, absorbing electricity and energy. It became a blazing electromagnetic furnace. Silver-white nanomachines rushed out of the furnace, gathered on the ground, and formed dozens of exquisitely structured combat robots, which rushed into the hall. Chen-Ong gently waved his hand and used gravity to push the people in the hall to a safe place. He signaled with his eyes, and the female customer service agent followed him, trembling with fear. "Relax, everyone. I'm here to rob a bank," Chen-Ong said with a smile. Under everyone's incredulous gaze, Chen-Ong stepped forward and shouted to the people inside, "You've been surrounded. Please don't resist stubbornly. Resistance will not end well. You're provoking the dignity of the United States. You can't bear its anger." A man in black walked out of the hall. The surrounding robots were dismantled by an invisible force. Next to him, a young woman smiled coldly at Chen-Ong. Suddenly, she opened her mouth wide and looked in Chen-Ang's direction. His companion skillfully took out a headset and put it on his head. A powerful sound wave broke out, and the sweeping sonic boom shattered all the items in front of Chen-Ong. The glass within dozens of miles suddenly exploded at the same time. The hostages in the hall screamed, but they were suppressed by the woman's sound wave alone. In their panic, they didn't realize that their surroundings were clean, and there was no glass. Chen-Ong found a chair and sat down leisurely. The nanomachines were broken in the sound wave, and then quickly adjusted their structure, reorganized, and formed some instruments in front of Chen-Ong to measure the physical data of the sound wave. The surrounding concrete rustled down in the sound wave, revealing the steel structure, and Chen-Ang's collar was only a little messy. "Interesting ability," Chen-Ong commented. Shield's elite agents, the mutants Banshee and Rip, looked at Chen-Ong with eyes full of disbelief. Banshee retracted her sound wave, and looking at Chen-Ang's calm expression, the two could hardly suppress their anger. A trace of ferocity flashed on Rip's face, but he quickly suppressed his impulse. He glanced at the strange nanomachines and sneered, "Let's clean up this garbage first." There was no shock wave, no high temperature, and no sound or light. A strong pressure pressed down out of thin air, crushing the surrounding robots into scrap iron. "You shouldn't provoke us. We're not a group of trash in the military." Rip's voice was calm and cruel. "You should know who the real master of this country is. You can't afford to provoke their power. Don't think you're great just because you defeated the group of trash in the government. You can't imagine the power of capital. Who you choose to be your friend, you should choose clearly." Banshee smiled and said, "Mr. Morgan is very willing to meet you. He is very interested in your theory of mutants. Mr. Morgan believes that mutants around the world, as a new political force, have already stepped onto the stage, and he can give you unexpected support. What you did in Manhattan was already very excessive, but solving this problem is a piece of cake for Mr. Morgan. He can give you a new identity and let the U.S. government let bygones be bygones." Rip's tone was a typical white elite. There was an irrepressible sense of arrogance and charity in his tone. "In the future, you will know our power. The public doesn't understand us, but you need to understand us, or else." Banshee smiled ambiguously. She handed over a document. "Look at our strength. You will know who you must be friends with, and what interests you can't touch." Chen-Ong glanced at the document and didn't take it. Banshee's face darkened. She sneered and said, "Don't die without knowing why. If I were you, I would read it carefully." She had never seen anyone who dared to reject the terrifying power of controlling the world's capital. This kind of terrifying power could scare anyone to death. It could be said that as long as these people were not satisfied, even the leader of the only superpower could only die quietly. They controlled 80% of the world's wealth and 60% of the capital. They were the financial geniuses, the real masters of this world, and also the hands behind the political forces. Such a force. There was nothing they couldn't achieve on Earth. Unfortunately, this Earth was too small. The world was too big. I don't need to understand this, Chen-Ong said lightly. I'm not interested in an ant that was trampled to death by a passerby, and I won't ask about its strength. Is there a difference between a weak ant and a stronger ant? By the same logic, why would I want to understand a remnant of history? It's filled with the smell of stale, rotten, and stupid. Forces that can't promote social progress and obstruct the realization of science will eventually be crushed by the general trend of history. Or be crushed by me. A sneer appeared on Banshee's face. She took a few steps back and came behind Shredder. But Chen-Ong didn't even have the mood to raise his hand. There was a rustling sound, but there was no explosion, nor was there any flame. In front of Chen-Ong, there was a huge steel dome, blocking the crushing atmosphere of Lacerate. Lacerate, who was controlling the air pressure, had his face flushed red. The huge pressure in the air was so strong that he could not move a single step forward. Chen-Ong watched them quietly from the side. Around them, countless ant-like nanomachines gathered into a huge wave. Banshee opened her mouth, and a huge sound wave swept out, but it was useless in front of the nanomachine's sound-absorbing structure. Countless agile mechanical insects quickly rushed towards them. Shredder's face sank, and he raised his hand to form a huge pressure zone in front of him. The insects were pressed against the marble floor by the air pressure, but they still dragged their tiny mechanical forelimbs and crawled towards the two people. Shredder could see that the robots on the ground were quickly changing their stress structure to adapt to the huge pressure. He even found that many of the robot insects had already reorganized their stress structure before they rushed over. More and more insects pounced on them, and they were getting closer and closer to the two of them. Rip's face even turned purple from the pressure. The marble floor around them could not withstand the huge pressure, and cracks appeared on it. However, the mechanical insects that were changing their structures rapidly approached each other and formed a more reasonable structure to withstand the pressure. Step by step, they firmly pressed towards the two of them. The reorganized robot's electronic eyes flashed with a cold and indifferent light. The two people's faces turned pale. Banshee bit her lower lip and roared at Chen-Ong, "You will regret this. You will never know how big a mistake you have made, and how terrifying an enemy you have provoked. There will be no place for you in this world." She hysterically cursed at Chen-Ong. Chen-Ong ignored her and looked into the distance. A real army was on the way here. Elite soldiers who had undergone X-gene surgery and mutated clones were holding plastic guns and carrying high-tech weapons from several major technology companies. They were approaching this place. The power of capital represented the world's most advanced technology, the most powerful weapons, the most whimsical and outrageous technology and army. Even Chen-Ong couldn't help but look askance at some of the black technology. Even Chen-Ong couldn't study a lot of human data. Without going through bloody experiments, this data that was difficult to grasp had already become technology here. If one looked from the sky, they could see that this place had already been surrounded by countless elite squads. If one looked further, one could see that Chen-Ang's position was the center of the countless destructive weapons. To be continued. Chapter 93. A suffocating pressure came from the outside of the hall. The soldiers transformed by the X-gene had amazing agility and strength. Those who survived the highly lethal surgery had trained their minds to be as tough as steel. They wore protective equipment made of composite materials and approached Chen-Ong in the form of a small team. In the air, the distorted air formed by the high temperature formed a straight line that led to Chen-Ang's heart. A blazing laser beam shot out from a large attack platform tens of kilometers away. The speed of light surpassed any reaction and went straight for Chen Ang's heart. Under the guidance of the mutant Hawkeye, the soldier who completed this miraculous super long-range attack didn't even have the time to cheer before he saw the laser beam refracted from Chen Ang's body and passed through Shredder's calf. Gravity could naturally distort the direction of light, but Chen Ang didn't need to waste so much energy for this attack. It was just a metal mirror with a high refractive index. The melted metal mirror was disassembled into nanomachines. You're at your wit's end. Shredder covered his calf with big drops of cold sweat on his head. He and Banshee were surrounded by the nanomachines and had already given up resistance. However, he still tried to make one last effort. This time you can't escape. Do you know how many people you're facing? 12 intelligence teams, more than 300 analysts, and all the technical experts from large enterprises and universities. You're not facing a few combat teams, but an entire system, a collective of hundreds of thousands of people. You're alone. It's not shameful to admit defeat. Who said I'm alone? Chen Ang asked with a smile. Banshee's face was gloomy as she sneered. Or these nanomachines. How many nanomachines do you have? You can't even replenish them. The weapons of the combat team are all composite materials. The metal here has been used up. You have no more resources. Chen Ang raised his eyebrows and smiled. I have a special transportation technique. Banshee looked at him with disdain in her eyes. Shredder shrank in the corner. The nearest combat team was less than 500 meters away from Chen Ang. Suddenly, a shrill scream came from midair. A gigantic meteor fell from the sky. The Banshee was dumbfounded as she saw the gigantic meteor smashing into the center of the combat team, causing a terrifying explosion. The flying gravel was as sharp as bullets. The rolling mud waves drowned the nearby combat team in the blink of an eye. He slowly walked out of the hall. Chen Ang stretched out his right hand, and the shock waves and earthquakes calmed down in front of a formless ripple. It was like a huge colorless wall had appeared in front of everyone. The female fiend was shocked to see the meteor in the crater. Slowly standing up in the smoke and dust, a metal giant tens of meters tall blocked the sun. Then, under countless people's incredulous gazes, the metal giant disintegrated, scattered, and shattered into countless metal fragments. Only its surface slid down like liquid. Countless metal scraps danced in the electromagnetic storm that erupted from the liquid metal. Countless nanomachines assembled and stabilized, forming a metal tower several meters tall in midair. Dozens of kilometers away, in the center of Manhattan, on a huge metal throne, 4 steel pillars flickering with electric currents pierced through the sky. A powerful electromagnetic field condensed in the middle of them. A metal warhead that was tens of meters tall floated in the air. It spun and accelerated in the electromagnetic field. It aimed at Chen Ang's direction and fired another electromagnetic cannon. 5 consecutive bullets turned the building in front of Chen Ang into ruins. Countless items exploded. An alloy door flew out from the building opposite and smashed on the road. Chen Ang walked back to the hall step by step. When he passed by the alloy door, he even greeted the absent-minded young man in the car with great interest. After that, he ignored the young man's expression as if he had seen a ghost and slowly walked back to the side of the Banshee and the man. He put away the cufflinks in his hand and greeted the two of them. See, I don't lack resources now. After saying that, he saw the expressions of the two of them as if their parents had died. The nanomachines that poured down quickly disassembled all the metals that could be found. The cables on the ground, the fire hydrants, the wires in midair, and even the cars on the street and the alloy door in the middle of the road were all quickly disassembled. Dozens of kilometers away, the throne of steel emitted high-frequency and high-energy electromagnetic waves. The metal towers erected in the field rapidly converted electricity to provide energy for the countless nanomachines. The nanomachines descended one after another with electromagnetic cannons. The liquid metal combat robots lined up neatly and moved forward. The genetically modified soldiers had extremely strong vitality. They could even crawl out of the mud brought by the electromagnetic gun. Before they could catch their breath, the flowing metal robots entangled them. They had no electric circuits, no weaknesses, and it was difficult for them to suffer physical damage. The liquid metal robots could recover at any time. They were naturally invincible. Their metal bodies were extremely tough. With energy, their strength could be almost infinitely strong. They were born to be killing weapons. They crushed the superpowered army. Super strength and super speed were no match for super technology. The liquid metal robots were equipped with several kinds of high-tech weapons. They were like a psoriasis with extremely powerful firepower that could not be smashed, hammered, or moved. They easily took care of the genetic army. A laser beam melted a liquid metal robot at the speed of light. But soon, it stood up again. The surface that was evaporated by the laser beam twisted a few times like water ripples and healed. Scott's face was gloomy. He put down the hand that was pressing on the right side of his sunglasses. After calculating the volume of the robot that had disappeared, he frowned. Lasers have no effect on them. Storm, try to blow them into the sea, Scott ordered in a deep voice. Logan shook his head disapprovingly. It's useless. The war-bringer of apocalypse may not be perfect, but it already has gravity anchors. You should be glad. If it was the second type, they could still fly and have electromagnetic weapons. I'm not asking you, Wolverine, Scott said to Logan in an unfriendly tone. Scott, Logan knows more than we do. You should ask for his opinion, Storm advised. The professor asked us to come here to work together. Apocalypse is not something we can defeat alone. Not even a few people can do it, Logan said indifferently. He's much more terrifying than you think. He's only a war-bringer now. Skynet almost wiped out humanity, but he's only a war-bringer under apocalypse. There's still the plague-bringer, the famine-bringer, and the most dangerous and terrifying death-bringer. I mean, let's not care about him. He'll disappear soon anyway. Logan shrugged. What are the other things? Storm frowned. Who knows? Anyway, it's said that these things have killed aliens on several planets. Logan took out a cigar and held one for himself. Those things have long left Earth. It's said that the plague bringer is on the back of the moon. At that time, we couldn't even deal with Skynet. Who would dare provoke that thing? What's so difficult about those nanomachines? Storm asked quickly. Nanomachines. Logan seemed to have fallen into a distant memory. He sighed faintly. Warbringer nanomachines. The only thing they have is that they can do anything. As long as you give them time, there's nothing they can't do. The nanomachines surged up like a tide, piling up into a huge metal pile. On the energy tower not far away, a few metal tentacles flashing with electricity reached out and rested on top of it. A steady stream of energy flowed into the crowd of nanomachines. Technological reconstruction. Her expression changed. She pulled the driver and rushed to the hall in the distance. Chen-Ong was in front of Banshee and Ripper, studying their genes seriously. On the experimental bench where the nanomachines were reconstructed, Chen-Ong observed their X genes and said, "The nature of your abilities is actually very similar. One is vibration conduction, the other is pressure conduction. The common point is that both require material to transmit force, but one is pressure, the other is vibration. Whether it's pressure or sound waves, the nature of their force is actually the same. They're both acting forces, and your abilities are also classified as transmission-type abilities. It's a pity that you've already discovered that underwater, your abilities are much more powerful, but it all boils down to the transmission of underwater sound and the problem of water pressure. Why don't you think further about the problem of the medium? The degree to which a material can transmit energy is determined by its own nature. Air is really not a suitable medium, and water is much better than it." Chen-Ong looked at the two's sarcastic eyes and sighed. I know that air is more common than water, but you guys don't understand what I mean. I mean, there are so many material carriers. Haven't you guys researched in this area? Even if you don't explore your abilities, you still have to develop your abilities. Do you know about gravitational conduction? What about dark matter? Looking at the two's confused eyes, Chen Ong sighed. 2 more test subjects. It was really not easy to find one with a brain. This was just common knowledge in science, but the 2 of them actually disdained to understand it. It was as if they were trying their luck to develop their abilities. How stupid was that? He stood up and pointed to the huge metal tower reconstructed by the nanomachines. The energy conduction ability of gravity is tens of thousands of times that of air. If the energy frequency of sound waves becomes gravitational waves, the result will be like that. The huge metal tower began to move slowly. The loud buzzing sound made them cover their ears. Then they saw a scene that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. The distorted air exploded in the air. Wherever the metal tower was facing, all existing matter was torn into discrete particles in a fraction of a second. Flying ashes swept across like a wave. Everything, regardless of quality, hardness, size, or strength, was turned into ashes in front of this energy. It was snowing in New York. The pure white ashes fluttered and covered the entire state of New York. Floating Astronomy. Chapter 94. The snowy substance was caught in the palms of curious New Yorkers. The pure white substance looked very clean. It was autumn in October, and New York looked like it was snowing. It was covered in a layer of silver, and it looked very beautiful. Innocent children ran excitedly in the snow, leaving their happy laughter. But in the eyes of those who knew, there was only a chill in their hearts, and they trembled. Tens of thousands of tons of material were evaporated in an instant. In the swirling snow, there was the most terrifying power of destruction. The dangerous ability of gravity tearing made those who knew what kind of terrifying person they were facing. He was the creator and also the destroyer. He was the gospel and also the apocalypse. He was the morning star angel and also the demon Lucifer. Xian suddenly thought of the worship of a small doomsday sect. This small sect was born out of Christianity. They claimed that the apocalypse was sent by God, and that the righteous were angels in heaven. They were rejected by the mainstream of the Doomsday Society, but they were still very popular. At this moment, Xian's own faith was shaken. In his memory there was no lack of such scenes. Skynet was not a kind person. When it fought against the Sentinel robots, it often used things like material tearing and energy heat death. But for the first time, he clearly understood what kind of terrifying existence he was facing. Scott and Stormy were also silent. The tearing storm just brushed past them, and they truly experienced the power of technology that could destroy heaven and earth. It was unstoppable. Stormy's expression became strange. She suddenly remembered when the professor sent them here. She wanted to say something, but she stopped herself. "Is this the power of the apocalypse?" Scott asked in a hoarse voice. "No." Wolverine was very calm. He flicked the ash off his cigarette, and looked at the tens of meters deep abyss in front of him. His eyes were a little dazed. He said softly, "This is the power of Skynet, the power of creation in the apocalypse. As far as I know, this is far from his limit. He said that he could pull the moon down. It's true." Wolverine took a deep breath and slowly blew out a ring of smoke. He slowly puffed out a smoke ring. "I've seen Skynet's ultimate weapon, gravity well. Is this the power of science?" Lady Stormsword sighed. "I feel like I should go back and enroll in a university. The 4 emissaries of the apocalypse. We've already seen war, so what are plague, famine, and death? Had Apocalypse already created them? Should we stop him? Scott put aside his dissatisfaction with Logan and asked seriously. I don't think he has the others yet. They were all developed after he gained control of the mutant gene bank. As far as I know, I mean future professors have told us. Among the remaining weapons of the Apocalypse, pestilence is a biological weapon, famine is a spatial weapon, and the most terrifying weapon, death, is a thought weapon that the professor helped develop, Logan said slowly. Even Skynet needs a lot of genetic research on mutants, including the genes of many special mutants, including Magneto and Enchantress. We don't know how many mutant genes were collected by the Sentinel Project, but that information was destroyed long ago. I only know that it was a genetic collection that included all the mutants in the world. We must stop the Sentinel Project. Scott hammered the ground. How can we stop it? Logan asked. How much pressure did Apocalypse bring to the world? How much potential did he display in his special ability? The development and research of Arcana is already the trend. How can you stop it? Believe it or not, if we stop the development of Arcana science, the first to object is our government. In fact, just 2 weeks later, Congress passed the Department of Defense's Special Military Expenditure Bill and the Special Technology Support Bill. The government will not give up on research in this area. This is Apocalypse's overt plot. Do you think the think tank didn't think that Apocalypse would steal the results? Then are we just going to sit back and watch? Scott said agitatedly. There's no way to stop him. What Apocalypse wants to do, as long as we give it time, it will succeed. He can discover problems and find a solution. Even if he can't find a solution now, he will eventually solve it, Wolverine said calmly. Coming back from the future, don't you have any ideas? Scott said fiercely. I'm waiting. Wolverine crushed the cigar embers with the sole of his shoe. Waiting for what? Stormsword asked. Waiting for an opportunity, a suitable opportunity. Logan smiled. He turned around and walked in the opposite direction of Chen-Ong. Are we going to leave now? What about those people? Stormsword was shocked. Chen-Ong stood in front of Banshee and Lacerator, watching as the nanomachines destroyed all information about the capital. He said slowly, Modern society is the information age. Many people think that I came here to plunder gold and currency. What's the use of these things? The disappearance of a few hundred tons of gold is not a big deal to the US dollar currency system. Currency has no value, it's just a pile of waste paper. Only by destroying the financial industry built on the credit system can we deal a heavy blow to the capital. We destroy the information here. Just the complex credit system alone can cause a huge wave in the economic market. Countless profit-seeking capitals will rush in and tear apart this huge profit. Even if the final outcome is to destroy themselves? Banshee asked in surprise. Chen-Ong did not expect any reaction from them. He did not expect Banshee to have the intention to please him. Her willingness to surrender was indeed out of Chen-Ang's expectation. Even if it means destroying themselves. Your choice surprised me. I thought they were an organization that could control people. Chen-Ong sat on the chair formed by the nanomachines and looked at the woman curiously. Banshee trembled and said, I can obtain this kind of power too, right? You can give me this kind of power, right? She looked at Chen-Ong expectantly and puffed out her chest to show her existence. Yes, this is not a difficult thing to do, Chen-Ong said confidently. Banshee's eyes were filled with surprise. She said excitedly, I can obey you, my master. She was about to crawl in front of Chen-Ong. Wait. Don't be anxious. Answer me a question. Chen-Ong said slowly, Why should I accept you? What kind of illusion made you think that I am a person who will accept any Tom, Dick, or Harry? Do you think I'm a hungry man like Magneto who wants all his men? Even if it is Magneto, his Brotherhood also needs the same dream, to fight to become the ruler of this world. Answer me first. Do you have a dream? Banshee was stunned. She had never encountered such a situation where she could not surrender. With her mutant ability, she had always been popular. She did not seem to consider the possibility of Chen-Ong rejecting her. I have a dream. What is my dream? What is my dream? Don't say it. Chen-Ong stopped her. You have no dream. No motivation to move forward with me. You don't even have an IQ. Tell me, a person without a dream, ability, or even a brain, why should I accept her? Is it because of your ability? Banshee was completely dumbfounded. She nodded subconsciously. She saw Chun-Ong sitting on a chair as if he had a headache. He held his head with both hands and sighed, "What a pity!" A group of nanomachines quickly reassembled in Chun-Ang's hand, turning into a robot that looked exactly like Banshee. It stretched out its hand, and an extremely high-frequency sound wave blasted Banshee's body, causing her body to tremble and collapse to the ground. Banshee felt an ability that was exactly the same as her. She was completely stunned. Your ability can be replicated by technology at any time. It is not something unique. I don't lack subordinates like you. You still have to eat and dress up. You can't compare to any robot, my subordinate. If he doesn't have a unique ability, he would at least have more brains than a robot. Otherwise, why would I want him? Your EQ and IQ can't compare to a robot, and you don't have a dream or motivation to move forward. Just obediently do something like being an experimental animal that has a bright future. Science is not suitable for you. Chun-Ong said lightly. He waved his hand and let the robot escort them away. Chun-Ong said he would make a move, and he really made a move. Except for his hand, he didn't use anything. This time, Chun-Ong only used his ability to protect those innocent people who were affected. The rest of the things were all done by Skynet. The result did not disappoint him. Wisdom is indeed the most terrifying power. Compared to abilities, force is even more terrifying. Learn to create because creation is greater than destruction. Chun-Ong whispered to himself. In the headquarters hundreds of miles away, there was a deathly silence. Everyone present was looking at the screen, watching the fluttering snowflakes. An old general was lost in thought. He tried his best to recall. How many years has it been since I've seen ashes like this? General. Someone pushed him. He came back to his senses, looked at the crowd sitting in front of him, and whispered, "Stryker, tell me what you think." Stryker stood up with a heavy face. He came to the large photo of Chun-Ong and said solemnly, "Codename X, we can already treat him as a mutant. Obviously, X has considerable technical strength, and has energy, material, and production capacity to replicate his scientific and technological achievements. He is a highly centralized organization. He has his own production capacity and research capabilities. He alone is a very terrifying organization. The recent nanomachines have maximized this ability. We can already clearly see the terrible vitality and potential of this machine model. He already has the ability to start a war with us on a global scale. I suggest that we temporarily suspend the Sentinel program and wait until the information is more sufficient before making a judgment." I refuse this statement. Bolivar stood up and said, "The Sentinel is our only choice against him. Everyone can already see the potential of mutants. Our scientific research ability is not inferior to him. It's just that we have neglected the development of this area for a long time. The Sentinel robot is our only hope against him. It is also where the future lies. Whether it is Asia or Europe, whether it is Asian or Caucasian, everyone knows that the future lies in the science of espers. We are destined to take this path unless we are willing to give up our leading position. The second vote on the establishment of the Mutant Gene Bank begins now." Good. Passed by a majority. Now, the Department of Defense will give us secret funds to collect mutant gene samples and establish the X Gene Science Center. The future will be the era of the United States, and the future of mankind will always be in our hand. P.S. The third update is done. Look at my sincere eyes and leave the monthly ticket to me. Chapter 95. Redx. In October, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York fell. A large amount of financial information was burned, and hundreds of tons of gold were transported away. The financial system of the United States was hit hard. The Federal Reserve banks in Chicago, San Francisco, and other places were also attacked by Skynet and were eventually breached. This month was a black October for the United States financial system. The bodies of the bankers who committed suicide could be connected from the streets to the ends of Wall Street. The credibility of the USD suffered an unprecedented blow and challenge, and Stark was closed for a month. On the wound of the behemoth, the Federal Reserve, the scavenging eagles were ready to tear off a piece of fat meat at any time. The war machine of the United States seemed to have been whipped and began to operate efficiently. Countless people, materials, wealth, and industrial capacity worked together for a goal, displaying extraordinary efficiency. Under this war machine, who knew how many heroes were crushed into dregs? The power of the organization began to show its power. The wisdom of millions of people would achieve terrible results. In North America, and even in every corner of the world, this huge organization and industrial system began to play its role. This kind of shadow shrouded the whole world. Countless resources, materials, scientists, and mutants were forcibly recruited from all over the world. In 15 bases around the world, they advanced for a goal: to fight against Apocalypse. The New York base was the bridgehead facing Apocalypse. The combat personnel, weapons, and countermeasure analysis, and intelligence personnel were the most concentrated. The large base, which was originally only dozens of meters deep, was now hundreds of meters deep. It had a huge underground complex for more than 50,000 researchers to live and study there. In the beehive-like underground base, a powerful energy field shrouded here. The electronic equipment arranged everywhere magnified this energy field, making it enough to cover the entire base. The professor looked at the soldiers and researchers in a hurry. His eyes were full of sadness. "Logan, is this useful against Apocalypse?" The professor looked back at Wolverine. "Useless? We have known about the barrier for a long time. It can block electronic detection. It is a powerful advantage against Skynet. Unfortunately, when Skynet evolved the quantum entanglement radar, it was useless. That guy knows nothing about physics. We taught him space physics and energy physics, but he couldn't learn it at all. There is no way to develop his ability in depth. Apocalypse studied such an energy barrier for 2 days. Then we'll find a way." Logan taunted without a care. "I'm not talking about that, Logan. I'm talking about such a system," the professor slowly said. "With the wisdom of hundreds of thousands of people, the combination of technology and arcana, Apocalypse is just one person. He can't fight against such an advantage." The U.S. government was full of confidence in this competition. They had the most outstanding scientists, the most extensive mutant gene pool. There is no reason for them to fail. Wolverine was silent. He looked up at the steel dome above his head and sighed. "It's useless, even against Skynet. Skynet is faster than us. The human brain limits our abilities and the speed of computers. The research and development capabilities they have brought has surpassed all of our efforts. It's not that we didn't try our best in the future, but we still lost. Skynet's thinking may be rigid, but every time it fails, it learns from us. Then it completes the development at the fastest speed and crushes us in turn. Even if human innovation far exceeds it, the limitations of the brain make us unable to compete with machines. Apocalypse has disappeared in the future, but the 4 creations he left behind have wiped out many civilizations. Perhaps they are the abrupt changes of Superman, but Apocalypse is already Superman." A huge photon computer was placed in the center of the base. Electronic Will was standing there with the photon computer to fight against Skynet's infiltration of the Internet, providing powerful computing power for the research here. Stryker was standing aside, looking at the report in his hand with a pale face. When he saw the professor and Wolverine coming over, he showed a very gloomy expression. "Now is not the time for our ideological confrontation." The professor shook his head and said, "Our purpose is the same, From maintaining peace to stopping apocalypse to stopping the development of sentinel robots, our positions are truly standing together. But on a larger scale, in terms of exterminating mutants, we are like fire and water. Stryker said bluntly, "You want to kill me, but you take into account the views of the government. I want to kill you, but I have the support of the government. You must not mind that I accidentally die in this war." "Now is not the time to talk about this." The professor sighed. Stryker snorted coldly, but did not ridicule him. "A soldier came here with a little girl. He pushed the girl rudely. 'Help me, please!' The little girl punched and kicked to prevent the soldier from approaching, but she still couldn't stop the soldier from approaching." The professor nodded, and his eyes slightly condensed, and the soldier stopped on the spot. "It's the Prophet. She's also been conscripted," Logan exclaimed. "Do you know her?" The professor took the girl's hand and asked in confusion. Logan looked at her face carefully and nodded. The girl suddenly laughed, and she was surprised. "So you are from the future?" Logan was not surprised. He and the girl looked at each other and smiled with a deep understanding. The soldier had recovered from the stagnation. He looked at the professor and others and wanted to pull out his gun, but Stryker stopped him. "This is a new mutant? What's the use of her?" The tone as if looking at an item made the professor frown. "She is a mutant from Serbia. Her code name is Witch. The locals believe that she can draw scenes of the future. We think she is a rare prophet." Logan whispered in the professor's ear, "The prophet can see the future. When she was a child, she would draw what she saw, which caused people to panic. Later, her ability became stronger and stronger, and she could hardly be hurt. She could avoid danger every time. She is also the pillar of human resistance against Skynet." "Why didn't you catch her?" Logan asked her with a smile. The prophet replied, "This is the best result. I can see you. I can't escape anyway, so it's better to come here. Are you willing to take me in?" She stared at the professor. "I will never refuse." The professor opened his arms. The prophet took Logan's hand, avoided Stryker and whispered, "They won't succeed." "You saw it?" Logan asked. "No." The prophet bit her nails and pretended to be mature. "It's because there is no such thing that it's terrible. I saw Apocalypse look at me. He can see me. War is terrible. You can only promote the birth of the other three monsters. Apocalypse is an existence you can't fight against. But we have no choice, right?" Logan just put his hand on his chest and was kicked by the prophet. "Don't smoke in front of children. Protect me, don't let Magneto see me, he's in trouble." The prophet said in Logan's ear, "Let the professor take me later. They have a big action today to tear down the big iron shell. You have to stay away when the time comes." On the other side, Stryker took the professor to a heavily guarded laboratory. There were all kinds of advanced instruments and weapons, and the tense atmosphere made the professor a little dazed. His old friend, Magneto, stood in the middle, looking at him with a smile, next to the mutants of the Mutant Brotherhood. Mystique's face was complicated, and there was something indescribable in her eyes. "Raven," the professor whispered. "Charles." Mystique smiled and greeted him. "It's time for us to fight side by side again." "Charles." Magneto laughed. "Well, don't talk nonsense." Stryker said seriously, "Today is the last chance given to us by the Department of Defense. If we can't stop Apocalypse, they will restart the Sentinel program. This is what you and I don't want to see." After hundreds of our intelligence personnel sorted out a plan to target the weakness of Skynet. On the screen behind him, a huge picture of the Iron Throne appeared. Skynet's only weakness is the supply of energy. There are only 3 large power stations in the country that can supply energy for them. The only one in the hands of Apocalypse is the electromagnetic generator in Manhattan. This miraculous energy station provides hundreds of millions of kilowatt-hours of energy for Skynet. Intelligence shows that Apocalypse needs a lot of steel, and at least 5 days to make such an energy tower. If we lose the large Skynet, we won't give him another chance. This is his only weakness and also our last chance. But that's the place where Apocalypse is personally stationed, and Skynet is the most prepared there. The professor raised a question. Stryker looked at him with a smile and gave up the position behind him. Meet your old friends, Eric. Eric Charles. Oh, astronomy. P.S. Watching the military parade today, it may be a little late to update. But the third watch will not change. Chapter 96. Redx. Under the steel sky, Chun-Ong observed Banshee and Ripper. Under the stimulation of the evolution elixir, the two's X genes showed a phenomenon of DNA recombination. The metal cells absorbed the gene combinations that were constantly eliminated and divided during the evolution process of the two and degenerated into brand new cells. Chun-Ong saw that some cells lost their activity, while others showed new changes. A bit of steel tissue floated in front of Chun-Ong, surrounded by the silent laboratory built by nanomachines. Chun-Ong gently slapped the metal tissue in front of it. Pa! The sound was not loud, but the steel tissue seemed to melt and disappear into the air. The steel soundproof barrier formed by the nanomachines in the distance seemed to have received an attack, and a deep hole the size of a thumb appeared. Chun-Ong manipulated the nanomachines and took out the iron block from the small hole. He put the iron block into the quantum scanning channel. Banshee's genetic ability on the surface was high-frequency sound waves, but in fact it should be energy conduction. However, after the evolution of the elixir, energy conduction could actually transmit matter. The steel cell tissue with the Banshee X gene could transmit its own matter with the help of energy waves when sound waves were transmitted. This made Chun-Ong very curious. The experiment had been going on for an afternoon, and even the nanomachines had updated themselves, but Chun-Ong still had not been able to find the mystery, but he had gained something. Time always passed quickly in the laboratory. When Chun-Ong walked out of the laboratory, the moon had already risen. In the blurry moonlight, Chun-Ong could not help but sigh. Why does every battle always happen under such a beautiful moonlight? He walked up to the place that led to the high platform. The nanomachines reorganized under his feet and lifted him high to the platform hundreds of meters in the air. Chun-Ong looked into the distance at the brightly lit New York City. Under his feet, it should have been the most prosperous area of Manhattan, but now there was only a river and a bright moon flowing through here. Deadpool walked over from behind Chun-Ong. He screamed, "Boss, what are you thinking about?" He raised his eyebrows and said with a strange smile, "Boss, you've already spent more than 10 hours with Skynet. I feel like you're in desperate need of a woman. Otherwise, you'll turn into a robot. To be honest, I won't be surprised if you peel off your skin one day and say that you're an alien hiding among the people on Earth." Chun-Ong looked at the sea in the distance. She tilted her head and asked, "Did you know? Deadpool didn't dare talk to me like that a long time ago. If you want to disguise yourself, your irises and voice print won't expose you, but do you know how many indicators there are in the human body that you don't know about?" Deadpool smiled and said, "How many?" "Body temperature, stride distance, mass, density, brain waves, and the quantum effects of the human body. How many of them are there?" It was easy to imitate a person because people always looked at people based on their faces. But it's hard to be someone else. Most people wouldn't notice these things, but I'm not an ordinary person. Chun-Ong looked into the distance calmly. Deadpool's body suddenly squirmed, and blue stripes occupied half of his skin. Soon he changed back to his original appearance. He smiled and said, "What about now?" His weight, height, and density were precisely in line with Deadpool's appearance, and even his small movements and habits were exactly the same. The former could also be an ability, and the latter required extremely good agent abilities. Unfortunately, in the eyes of Chun-Ong, there were still many mistakes, even if he even imitated brainwaves. Chun-Ong looked at Deadpool and exclaimed, "It's really amazing, but it's useless." The world in my eyes is different from yours. You look as funny as a rabbit imitating a frog. Deadpool looked at Chen-Ong for a long time, and finally gave up looking at him. His whole body twisted and turned into a blue-skinned, red-haired weirdo. She smiled and said, I can't tell whether what you said is true or false. But after all, I was recognized by you, so you win. Why, are you scared by my appearance? No, you're beautiful, Chen-Ong exclaimed, full of the mystery and beauty of science. Is this how you praise a girl? The demoness provoked. That's not okay. Chen-Ong smiled calmly, his eyes full of curiosity. I'm just reflecting on myself. I've done a lot of experiments recently, and when I saw you, my first reaction was that I couldn't help but want to study it. Ha! This is not funny. The demoness shook her head, and seeing Chen-Ang's focused eyes, she suddenly reacted. Are you serious? Many mutants have the experience of being studied. They don't like scientists, and they hate research even more. Chen-Ang's words touched an untouchable scar in the demoness' heart. Her face instantly became gloomy, and the atmosphere between the two suddenly solidified. Chen-Ong didn't seem to care about this. He looked calmly into the distance. The gravitational threads reflected the small changes around New York. In the end, it was the demoness who spoke first. She came here with a mission, and she couldn't let her emotions get the best of her. Magneto thinks highly of you. He thinks you're the future leader of the mutants. If you weren't so presumptuous, maybe I would agree with this. The demoness put a nail in the coffin for what just happened. She adjusted her mood with the mental victory unique to women, and became calm again. Magneto. The absent-minded Chen-Ong had the ability to piss anyone off. His tone of looking at the experimental materials was like he was lamenting that today's experimental materials were very challenging, very high quality, and full of coldness and cruelty that ignored personality. The demoness felt that he wasn't saying Magneto's name. Instead, he was saying the code name of a white mouse. If she could go to Chen-Ang's laboratory and take a look, she would be surprised to find that the experimental equipment custom-made for the two of them was already in place. If she was careful, she might even find the experimental materials in the corner. Experimental preparations. She could see her and Magneto's names on the sterile clothes. It couldn't be helped, Chen-Ong was a person who planned ahead. He had already designed the experiment and was just waiting for the materials to be in place. He didn't expect that one would be delivered to his doorstep today. Chen-Ong sighed in his heart. Unfortunately, there wasn't any conflict. Otherwise, I would have a legitimate reason to detain her and conduct the experiment tonight. Chen-Ang's personality had changed a lot, but he still couldn't bring himself to capture people for no reason and use them as experimental materials. But I won't have to wait too long, Chen-Ong thought with a smile. He had already noticed a faint red light in the distance. The demoness suppressed her anger and said coldly, You're also a mutant. You should know that no matter how strong you are, in the eyes of humans, you're a monster. You'll never be able to live a normal life. Mutants don't have a dominant position. No matter how strong you are, you'll only be excluded from society. You'll be used, treated with hostility, and humiliated. You're right. Chen-Ong agreed. That's the reality, but first there's a question. Why do I want to live a normal life? Secondly, I'm not a mutant. You've forgotten that my position is always with normal humans. The reason why I'm standing here is not to fight for the rights of mutants, but to use the value of mutants. If you want to fight for me, you should show the value of the Brotherhood instead of using your dreams. My dreams are different from yours. Chen-Ang's eyes were calm. The demoness almost suffocated. She couldn't believe that such a powerful mutant would deny his identity and value. In the Brotherhood, the weak mutants in the early stage were indeed repelled, but once they truly acknowledged their identity, they would feel proud. The demoness was sure that Chen-Ong had the same cognitive bias. Mutants are the future of humanity, the new humans. We're the pride of evolution, the future masters of the Earth. We'll eliminate humans and become the true masters of the world. Abilities are abilities, wealth. Just like how apes have brains and use their hands and tools, they eliminated their ancestors and became humans. Our future is the same as our ancestors, a brand new human, the future. Normal humans envy us, humans fear us, because we are their future, and we'll eliminate them. Mutants are proud. The Brotherhood is an organization for mutants to unite and move towards the future, the demonist said excitedly. But Chen-Ong just sighed and said, "Is that all Magneto learned in the Nazis? Leftover racism? When he grew up, he became who he was. Shaw molded him, why not teach him to be smarter?" There are only two outcomes to the battle between mutants and humans. Either humans step over our dead bodies, or we step over their dead bodies. If someone said, "Dream on," I could only reply, "You idiot, if I wasn't a dreamer, where would we be today?" I always believed in mutants, and you said I was a dreamer. I always believed that mutants would rise, and you said I was an idiot. I always believed that we could regain our rights, and you said I was crazy. I always believed that oppression would come to an end, and you said it would be a utopia. Who's right? You or me? I'm right, and I'll always be right. Chen-Ong played a video of Hitler's speech with great interest. He changed the key words in his speech, and a very provocative demand for the rights of the mutants was fresh out of the oven. He looked back at the demoness and asked curiously, "Is there anything else about mutants' living space, social Darwinism, and leadership principles?" He saw the demoness' livid face and nodded, "Looks like there is." Did Magneto buy Hitler's copyright? When did the Mutant Brotherhood change its name to the new National Socialist Party? When did the concentration camps come out? Chen-Eng's words were like sharp knives, piercing through the things the demoness was trying to hide. Of all the things to learn, why do you have to learn from a loser? Don't you think you deserve it? Chen-Ong said coldly, "What does Magneto want? Economy belongs to humans, politics belongs to humans, culture, science, and all the best and most advanced things of human civilization were created by humans. Does he want to be the medieval pope of the technological age? Or the 21st century version of the Roman emperor? Forgive me, but I don't see any potential in mutants other than their abilities. If the world is a survival of the fittest, then it's nothing new for humans to eliminate one or two species that aren't suitable for humans. Since the birth of the erect ape, more species have gone extinct than ever before. It's like a mass extinction. Nature creates species, and humans determine their fate. Species that can't adapt to humans' transformation of nature are all dead. A mutant won't make much of a difference. To be continued. Chapter 97. Rex. No matter what Apocalypse did, he was right about one thing. The professor looked at the crazy old doctor in front of him, who had a head full of greasy, messy hair, and raised his black finger. That is research science. He really revealed the facts that the politicians and idiots have been ignoring. Ability is a kind of science, it can be studied, and it is extremely valuable. He proved this. What a genius! The old doctor was obsessed and met his only confidant. Is there something wrong with his brain? You let such a person preside over this operation? Scott still complained to Stryker. He is the best researcher. As far as I know, he started to study mutant abilities in the 1950s of the last century. At that time, he was still a young man. You know, this kind of research has been ignored for a long time and has been excluded by the mainstream scientific community. Over time it became like this. Stryker said regretfully. If he knew that there was such a talent, he would have invited him to Weapon X no matter what. Scott complained, actually, you can choose the second best, at least he looks more reliable. Then he went to X without saying a word. In fact, when we found him, he was collecting money for a ticket to Manhattan. Thank you for his poverty. Otherwise, we would have been able to see another outstanding subordinate of X. Stryker sneered. No matter how unreliable the old doctor seemed, His professional level was commendable. He led the professor and the others to the tower at the exit of the underground base, and walked up along the tower. The fine metal wires were spiraled into a strange regular shape, which made Scott and others feel creepy. Logan thought about it for a long time and always felt that this style was very familiar. After thinking about it carefully, it turned out to be the design style of the first generation of Skynet. He was shocked and pulled Stryker's collar and said, "Who arranged these things?" "It's me, what's wrong?" The old doctor turned around and asked curiously. "This is Skynet." Logan's liquid metal arm began to deform. "No, no, no." The old doctor pulled her and said in a good voice, "This is just my work of imitating Skynet, they are just some wires. You can also recognize this style, isn't it beautiful? Apocalypse is really a genius, everything he created is so beautiful, so scientific, so harmonious, so imaginative." This time, Logan sharply noticed that the codename the old professor used for Chen-Ong was Apocalypse, not the X that he was currently using. His pupils shrank, and he raised his vigilance against this fallen doctor. In any case, anyone who knew the name of Apocalypse was worth paying attention to. Scott pulled Stryker's collar and said angrily, "You found me a supporter of Apocalypse and a fanatical believer. He is almost treating Apocalypse as a god. You put my life in the hands of such a person. You don't know. Because of this, he is the one who wants to defeat X the most. His victory is incomparably powerful. He wants to prove the perfection of Apocalypse and will do his best to defeat him. If he loses, he will defend his faith. If he wins, he will not let his faith be destroyed in the hands of others." Stryker said calmly. He pulled Scott's right hand hard and gave him a fierce look. Everyone arrived at the top of the tower. A telescope-like device was aimed at the center of Manhattan, and it poked out of the tower like a starting astronomical telescope. Ignoring the confused crowd, the old professor pulled Scott to the eyepiece of the telescope. "You have laser eyes, do you know how lasers are fired?" Scott had an embarrassed expression on his face, and the old professor looked at his face with a sneer on his face. "Your sunglasses can limit the power of your eyes, but even if you take them off, it's not a big deal. The brightness of a laser is about 10 billion times that of sunlight, and its temperature is higher than the surface of the sun, but this is just a trivial matter for Apocalypse. The laser emitter he made is much stronger than you." The old professor laughed. "What? You don't believe me? The energy of a photon is calculated by E equals hv, where h is Planck's constant and v is the frequency. The higher the frequency, the higher the energy. And the laser frequency range is only 3846 by 10 carat 14 Hz to 7895 by 10 carat 14 Hz. This is a very remarkable value for the Earth, but in the hands of Apocalypse, who is a master in energy conduction, this frequency can be increased by 10 times. As long as you are still transmitting lasers in the air, it is not comparable to Apocalypse, who has reached the pinnacle of space and energy transmission." The old professor saw the laser eyes holding his hands tightly and smiled smugly. "Fortunately, you have me. Microscopic particles have a set of energy levels. Particles can only be at one energy level at any time. Particles that transition from high energy to low energy levels will emit a corresponding photon. This is stimulated radiation. And the trigger for this process is another beam of lower energy photon." The old professor sighed. "What does this mean? Your laser can stimulate more powerful energy, and all the energy in New York will be prioritized for this particle generator. Come on. Show me what you can do." On the steel platform, Chen-Ong saw the lights of New York slowly disappear from the south to the north. Darkness engulfed the land, leaving only the moonlight to illuminate the sky. The demoness expression changed. She pretended to be nonchalant and took a few steps back. "I'm tired. Let's talk about the rest tomorrow," she said in a relaxed tone. Chen-Ong looked at her with a smile. "Are you sure you don't want to wait?" There will be a beautiful laser passing by later. It would be a pity to miss it. Before Demonis could answer, the ground beneath her feet started to crack. Countless nanomachines gathered into a huge ring, flashing with electromagnetic light. All the metal objects around them started to float in the air. The powerful magnetic field caused the energy level of the electrons around them to fluctuate. Lightning started to flash in the air. Chen Ong stood on the platform and looked at the powerful energy gathering in the distance. A burning beam with heat comparable to the core of the sun. The energy of the entire New York was directed at Chen Ong. The condensed energy even distorted space and created a strange wave in the gravitational field. It was too late when he saw the laser. It was a speed that humans could not react to, reach, or even comprehend. Even Chen Ong could not catch up to it. The speed of light was invincible, but humans were not. Chen Ong had already noticed it from the gravitational field. He had even guessed the method of attack. The electromagnetic field triggered by the nanomachines had reached its limit. The laser could be triggered at any time. It was a huge energy field that spanned over a few miles. It formed the first line of defense against the laser. The nanomachines with extremely high reflectivity floated in the air. The semi-transparent gaseous metal soul that had solidified into a gelatinous substance came into contact with the laser. Countless nanomachines were vaporized into free particles. However, they managed to scatter more than 90% of the laser's energy. The laser, which was only 5 centimeters in diameter, suddenly became as thick as a person's arms. The flashing laser and the low-energy particles in the energy field had a stimulated absorption reaction. The huge number of particles transitioned into high-energy particles and balanced the particle field. Before the laser could even touch the tip of Chen Ang's nose, it was dissolved by the nanomachine's energy field and sacrificed. The nanomachine's particles floating in the air were restraining a huge amount of photon energy. The particle reversal field had reached its limit. The demonic goddess was still in a daze. She watched in horror as the laser that could vaporize steel dozens of meters in diameter disappeared in the air in front of Chen Ong. She could feel the intense uneasiness and mania in the air. She only saw that Chen Ong gently pointed at the void in front of him, and a fluorescent light was emitted. It was so fast that even the demonic woman couldn't see it. In the eyes of the demonic woman, there was only a white blurry light and shadow. Without Chen Ang's reminder, the strong light that erupted made her suffer. The laser that Chen Ong activated, due to the loss, only had half of the energy of the laser eye, but it easily vaporized the tower where the professor and the others had stayed. Scott looked at the tower where the upper half of the tower had disappeared, and there was also a shocked expression on his face. The old doctor quickly got into the underground passage. Logan seemed to remember something and shouted, "Quick, go down, don't stay up there, hurry up!" He carried the professor in the wheelchair and took the lead in getting into the passage. Scott and Stryker were a step behind, and they saw an extremely terrifying scene. Countless metal torrents, like light, like waves, came from the horizon. They hit the tower and replaced the tower with a metal structure. It was a radar that received radio waves. It was reconstructed by them in the tower. The metal material showed an energy wave state, passing through all obstacles and reaching the place where it was. Countless technological creations, a little skeleton was born from the void, and then countless nanomachines swarmed on it to form a metal structure. Dozens of drilling vehicles were built in this way. A familiar scream came from the sky, and the two hurriedly lay down on the ground. An earth-piercing warhead blasted straight down from a high altitude, drilling deep into the ground hundreds of meters deep, destroying the geological structure. A large area of the base collapsed, and the warhead melted into a torrent of nanomachines and liquid robots, drilling into the base. To be continued. P.S. Finally arrived, the third update is completed. He fulfilled his promise.